And we're live. What's up, everybody? It's OG del Rancho here with you today. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope the Lord is bringing blessings onto you. I hope you're waking up in a cheerful mood, looking forward to the future, thankful for this life that we're blessed with. Just waiting on my guest here. They'll be getting in here any second. Today we're going to be covering the recent tragic events that happened on Juneteenth, aka Puerto Rican Festival Day, I guess, in Chicago, and the young couple that needlessly passed away, and all the kind of drama that came out of that. But mostly, it's not really to dwell or to pick out a wound. But what I'd like to do today is really take bigger lessons from the tragic event, right? Their deaths, may the Lord, look after their souls. Am I getting a little bit of echo? Can you guys hear me well? Klaus?
Yeah, I can hear you well. Good evening, everyone. Y pasen la tumba de lo que pasó.
Yeah. Welcome to the show, Klaus. So, yeah, I was saying that, in a tragic event like this, the best way to make honor to those who've fallen, who've passed away, is to try to take some lessons for the rest of us. And I think there was a lot of lessons in this, both on the practical side and also on kind of like the macro side of things, the meta critique. There's a lot of lessons for us to learn. And so that's what I'd like to go through today. We have a few guests from Puerto Rico, some other Puerto Ricans from around the country, and I think Taco as well will be joining us. And then as usual, in about the half of the show, once kind of we get through everything, we'll open up to general discussion with the audience. So I hope everybody's got their drink, got their cigar, or whatever it is you're into. Just chill. It's Friday night. Welcome. And look, like we have Noé. ¿Cómo estás, Noé?
Hola.
Hola. ¿Cómo estás?
Buenas noches.
Muy bien. ¿Y ustedes?
Muy bien. Gracias por compartir tu tiempo con nosotros hoy y participar.
Claro, y gracias por tenerme aquí.
Sí. ¿Por qué no te introduces un poco para la audiencia, para que ellos puedan, conocer quién es quien les habla?
¿En español o en inglés?
Como tú quieras.
Ok, pues hola a todos y todas. Soy Noé, soy de Puerto Rico. Siempre he estado aquí, originaria de Puerto Rico.
Este es Bori de verdad.
Sí, vivo en el campo y pues...
El país es jíbara también.
Sí, eso sería todo. Gracias.
Bueno, gracias por compartir. Y tenemos a Bori King. It looks like you have some feedback, dog. But that's okay. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the show. Okay. It looks like you can't hear us. Bori King, it looks like you have some feedback. And get that figured out and come back. Let me send the last link to our buddy Taco here that I forgot. I didn't send the link. Fumble. Y no sé si, do you know if, ¿cómo es que se llama este? ¿Es Leo o Lenny o Daniel? Noé.
¿León o Lenny?
Ok, es León. Ya. No sé si él escuchó que es que perdí su contacto y no me puedo comunicar con él directamente.
Yo le avisé, le envié el enlace, pero estoy esperando por él. No sé si se va a meter en algún momento.
Bueno, ojalá se pueda meter. A ver, estamos esperando solo a Taco. Y no debe de tardar. Yo fui el que tardé en avisarle. Pero sí, a ver, Noé, tú viste el video, no sé si te has actualizado mucho con lo que ha pasado.
Sí, lo he visto.
¿Y qué piensas de lo que pasó? O sea, no sé si te has enterado mucho o qué es lo que has escuchado hasta este punto.
Bueno, yo he estado leyendo, pues, las pocas noticias que pues se han reportado sobre la situación y una situación muy, muy pesada, honestamente.
Sí,
La forma en la que esos hombres sacaron a una mujer de un carro para ejecutarla.
sí.
Horrible, fue horrible ver eso y el hecho de que casi ningún oficial o ningunos medios han estado hablando sobre este hecho.
Sí, no, es cierto, eso sí. Pero fíjate que si haces un Google search sobre pareja baleada en Chicago, vas a encontrar, o sea, entre las últimas 3, 4 semanas, vas a encontrar más de una docena. O sea, no, no es nada fuera de serie en Chicago. Esto es casi cotidiano. Ah,
Claro,
es impresionante el nivel de violencia que existe en esa ciudad. Am, y bueno, esos valores destructivos, que es lo que quiero expandir más tarde en la conversación, esos valores destructivos es lo que lamentablemente el boricua de esa ciudad ha adoptado. ¿Me explico?
sí, claro.
Y eso es triste y para mí eso es como una oportunidad para todos a aprender de nuevo. Del error de uno puede aprender cualquier persona. No es por, it's not to jump on people, right? It's simply to say like, damn, we can all learn from this experience with Puerto Ricans being really the first Hispanic urban population in the United States on a massive scale, right? Of course, in the Southwest, Mexicans never went away, uh, but it wasn't really an urban population like the Puerto Ricans in New York City and later in Chicago. And so it's always like you guys were the first wave here. And it's like you're ahead of the curve because you were the first here, and like we can see the path you've kind of gone down in a sense. Am I making sense?
Yeah, I would say that we Boricuas have sadly had the longest history of Americanization within
Yes.
Hispanics, and it's not just something in the US, it's also like prevalent here in La Isla.
Sure. And now Puerto Rico, and it's like the pop culture that's sucked out of Puerto Rico and presented for the world is also a means to spread that in other countries of Latin America.
Yeah, very true. Like reggaeton, I'm guessing you're referring to.
Yeah. But even, and this isn't exclusive. Corey, you need to get a headphones or something, dog. Está bien mal tu sonido. Sorry, buddy. Just keep working on it. And it's not like exclusive to Puerto Rico. I mean, Hollywood, the big music industry is going to use artists from any country. But it's easier. It's an easier gap to Puerto Rico because Puerto Rico is still an American territory, right? Puerto Ricans have such a big population. I think there's more Puerto Ricans outside of the U.S. than in the U.S. now. Am I correct?
Yes, in La Isla, there's around 3.5 million
Uh-huh.
inhabitants, and in the US, I believe there's 7 million.
Wow. So twice as many outside than inside. So
Yeah.
And why don't you actually, before we get into the thick of it, why don't you share a little bit about, I know you guys have like a group or like you guys have like a publication group or something around Puerto Rican like independence and nationalism. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's called Juventud Nacional. We have a page on Instagram. There's also one on Facebook and Twitter, and we also have a YouTube channel that we're kind of working on a little bit. We're mainly a magazine, and we post informational stuff about what's going on in Puerto Rico, not just like historically, but also about our culture, our economy, and the way that the US has affected all of these things throughout time.
Right. And you guys get into a little bit kind of like political theory as well, don't you?
Yes.
Thanks to Leo. Okay, so why don't we dig in? I don't know if have you heard that it was a black guy or was it a Hispanic guy that shot the girl? Or do you know anything? There's like when this thing first broke out on our side, it was right away made a race thing. I think everybody here is very anxious, and I understand where people are coming from, but I think everybody got like lockjawed and said, "Oh yeah, it was a black dude. It was a black dude," and it seems that it wasn't. Do you know about that kind of playing into the drama?
I've heard a lot of people, claiming that it was black, and other people saying, "Oh, it could have been a Hispanic or Boricua." But I've noticed that a lot of people have used this situation to kind of like more complain about, people calling out certain communities rather than focusing on what's the
On the
actual
issue, yeah.
problem.
Which is exactly. Which one of the lessons here, and one of the first one that I put is, when these things come out, you can't be anxious and you can't be emotional, because when you're anxious and you're emotional, we know where we're coming from, right? And we know what the statistics are, but if we're blinded by that passionately, emotionally, we're going to fall into traps. Our eyes might even lie to us, which I think is what happened here. We're going to expand a little bit about the gang situation in Chicago and New York or the Bay Area. But one thing to understand that, and this is from some Mexican Chicago homies of mine, that this neighborhood is a Puerto Rican, Mexican, and a black neighborhood. And they all got their own gangs and they're all in each other's gangs. So it's not a place that's necessarily segregated. Everybody's on each other's side in a sense. It's all just kind of these, petty street gangs. But this video is a little tough to watch. So, for those of you who are squeamish, you might not want to see this. But, I have to show it. And real quick, we can see here. This is the shooter here. This guy right here, if you can see him, from that angle, he really doesn't look black. He does look Hispanic. He looks like he's kind of prieto. He looks like your average, darker side Puerto Rican, but not necessarily African. This guy right here definitely looks more African. He's bald. His head is shining. This guy, we can tell, has actual hair. That's not like an afro. There's clearly a Hispanic guy up here recording. It looks like there's interspersed some Hispanics and blacks here. And there's definitely a lighter skinned Hispanic girl back here. What you can see at the top of the video up here is that you see another car is pulling out with the Puerto Rican flag. So it looks like people are pulling out of the parking. From what I've heard in Chicago, from people that I know in Chicago, it seems like the girl was driving and they rear-ended a car that was filled with like 5 or 6 guys. And then it escalated. People were talking shit, gang signs. We're going to get into a little bit about the couple. Again, it's not to try to throw dirt on anybody's name, but we want to take the greater lessons here, right? It's what we were talking about earlier. We don't want to get lost up in the weeds. We want to actually learn from this situation. So I'm going to hit play and let's take it from there.
Nigga, look at him. That's a body. Oh. Yeah, that is in Hispanic for sure. Oh, yeah. The dark. That's like one of you, man. That is in Hispanic. Oh. Yeah, that's a body. Oh. Yeah, that is in Hispanic for sure. Oh, yeah. The dark. That's like one of you, man.
And I'll just move it real quick. For me personally, it's really hard to see women die. Like, I can see dudes getting shot up, blown to pieces. Like, it doesn't do anything to me. But when I see a woman passing away, it just pulls at you a certain way. I don't know if you guys feel that. Oh, Taco, by the way, welcome to the show, man. I didn't see you.
Yo, can you hear me? I just got some new earbuds and a new phone, so my shit won't die on you guys every time.
You sound really, really good. You sound better than you've ever sounded on the show.
Awesome, bro. That's the plan. All right. Well, I'm good, man. It's good to be on the show. I have a personal connection to Puerto Ricans in La Isla. Even though everybody knows I'm Mexican here, but my grandmother, when she came over to New York, met a Puerto Rican man and they got married. and he was the only grandfather I ever knew. So my like early years, you know, I was raised by this man, and he's a very old school Puerto Rican, raised himself. He was a orphan. You know, he died and he could barely read and write. You know, I used to watch him practice his name to write it down. But like, he was the best man ever. And when you talk about, you know, suffering with grace, he had a battle with cancer for 10 years. And, you know, I took care of him until like the last day. I was like one of the last people with him when he passed. But he was a great man. So Puerto Rico is always special to me. You know, I've been there a bunch of times. You know, my grandmother actually passed away there.
Oh
you know,
wow!
when they were living there at one point. So,
Wow! So
you
no,
know what I mean?
yeah, you have a real in Puerto Rico. It's not just living.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Boricuas are like my brothers.
Here.
You know,
Same.
my sister, you know, gonna get married to a Puerto Rican. We've been in the family since forever. They're like part of my family.
Yeah. And in New York, from your experience, what you've seen, is there kind of this gang mixture where there'll be blacks and Hispanic gangs and Hispanics and black gangs, and kind of you can't really.
Yeah, I mean that happens. Well, it used to happen a lot more because of where the Puerto Ricans lived in the Bronx, right? So like you're living in the Bronx, you're living in the South Bronx. It's like you're sharing that area with the black people there. So there was always this element of that here in New York City. I'm not quite sure how it is now. I guess it is because Dominicans are actually more populous in the city now than Puerto Ricans.
Yeah.
When that wasn't traditionally the case. Puerto Ricans have moved out. You know, there's some in Bridgeport, Connecticut, but it seems to be that like they're the first ones to kind of fall to this. You're American black. You guys are basically the same.
They got black. They got black
right
very early on.
Right. That they're trying to do with Dominicans now. Like it's just the Puerto Ricans have already been through that because they've been in the inner cities sharing these neighborhoods. So like you said that, you know, the neighborhood is a very mixed neighborhood and they're all in each other's different gangs.
Yeah. That's from what I knew, you know, from the ratchet kids I grew up with that I still keep in touch with, and they know ratchet kids in Chicago, of course. And you know, that's always been my impression. Like everybody acts like niggas, whether you're Hispanic or black, it doesn't matter. Even white people kind of act like that too. The Midwest is kind of a different place. Yeah, I mean, you know, when I first saw this, I've trained my eye to not trust my eye, or my mind not to trust my eye, because we all saw 2 planes fly into a building and supposedly it was 19 terrorists, and buildings don't collapse in themselves, and then Tower 7 collapsed even though a plane never went. So it's like, I don't trust my eyes. I don't trust the media. I don't care if it's lined in perfectly with an argument that I've been posing and it just supports it. I'm always very suspicious of what I see on screen, not just from 9/11, but, you know, in 2018, there was a failed coup attempt, the color revolution in Nicaragua. And that whole thing happened through sensationalism, right? Back in the day, they had, I think they call it yellow journalism, right? Now it was through Facebook. You see these very blurry, choppy, bouncy videos of supposedly some teenagers getting shot. But then if you play it in slow motion, you realize there's no blood on the floor. So it's like, it's very easy to fake these things. I'm not saying that that's what happened here. I do genuinely believe this actually happened. But because I've trained my mind to be suspicious of what I see, I don't get controlled by emotions, which I think what happened with a lot of people is that they saw this and they just like automatically went to it. I even heard white people say that these were like white Puerto Ricans and that they were flying the Confederate flag. Like even white people try to make this about them and that blacks were coming at them. And then I saw an article from Russia Today. Russia Today was the only one that said they were black, but it's like, hello, it's Russia Today. They have a vested interest in kind of, you know, pushing certain dialectics, if you will, into America, which, hey, I understand where they're coming from. But I saw this and, you know, it just reminded me of my Puerto Rican niggas that I know. Like I got a friend from Orlando Will, if you're listening, get on the show. Like, I really thought of Will because he's like Will's frame. He's like stocky. He's Will's color, and he seems to have kind of Will's like textured long hair. And so I'm like, this fool's a Puerto Rican. And then, my Mexican homie, like, we were sharing screenshots of it, and like the dude has like a modelo body. And then we don't mean like a supermodel. We mean like he drinks too much modelo. Like he has that little beer belly. And sorry to make light of a dark situation, but let me share some more stuff here. I'll just play it one more time in case anybody's coming in. Again, apologies. Let's just try to be as forensic about this as possible. Notice that it's a mixed crowd for sure. A lot of people were trying to say that these dudes were black. There's light-skinned blacks for sure, but this is like all the light-skinned blacks in Chicago just happen to be at the same corner at the same time. Like, no, one light skin per a dozen of the dark skin. So I never thought it was a black dude who shot. It just...
Nigga, look at him. That's a body. Oh. Yeah, that is in Hispanic for sure. Oh, yeah. The dark. It's like one of you, guys.
And then even the security guard who's watching the video, it sounds like it's a Mexican and a Puerto Rican guy, and they're both kind of agreeing. Yeah, that was a Hispanic for sure. And now here's the issue, that when we react emotionally to these things and we overreact, and right away we upload videos saying, oh, the blacks are killing us, we just walk into a trap. Because then when the news comes out a few days later, now we look stupid. Now it looks like all the truth that we've been sharing gets thrown out because now we're illegitimate. Because now, oh, you said it was black and then it didn't end up being black. So now I'm not going to take your FBI statistics that clearly show that blacks attack us 3 times more than we attack them, and whites attack us twice as much as we attack them. Then in fact, instead of actually talking about the facts, we get lost in sensationalism and emotionalism, and then we end up being made look stupid by those who place themselves as our rivals or our enemies. Let me share some of the pictures here. No, that's not it. Where is it? Here it is. Okay, so can you guys see that? Yeah, it'll pull up in a second. Okay, so let's look real quick. So, man, again, this is Chicago. People are ratchet, and this is really what we're going to expand the conversation into. It's the ratchetization of the Hispanic that we need to be looking out for. That's really the bigger lessons for us all, that when you adopt a certain culture, certain values, a certain worldview, a certain outlook, the results of it end up being destruction. And that's not a exclusive to the ghetto black culture of the United States, because white culture of the United States is just as degenerate. It simply is more hypocritical. It's simply more hidden behind, appearances. But let's look at homie here. So Gyovanny, actually, I'm sorry, you guys. Why don't we take a second to pray for these souls, man? You guys want to do that?
Yes, sir.
Real quick. I'm just I'm gonna lead us into a prayer. Into thy hands, O Lord, I commend the souls of thy servants Gyovanny and does anybody remember the girl's name?
Yasmin, I think it was.
Yes, yeah, it's Yasmin.
And Yasmin, and beseech and look after their children, and beseech thee to grant them rest in the place of thy rest, where all thy blessed saints repose, and where the light of thy countenance shineth forever. And I beseech thee also to grant that our present lives may be godly, sober, and blameless, that we too may be made worthy to enter into thy heavenly kingdom with those we love but no longer see. For thou art the resurrection, the life, and the repose of thy departed servants, O Christ our God. And unto thee do we ascribe glory to the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, now and ever, unto the ages of ages. Amen.
Amen. En paz descanse.
So let's take from Gio a bit here, and it's like this is the lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? Like, this isn't model citizenry. I mean, everybody's subject to take a picture with a gun looking cool. That's just kind of part of it. But el aspecto de este man es un aspecto de un ñero. No sé cómo dicen eso en Puerto Rico, Noé. How do you say like a thug?
Tigre, I think it is. Tigre, malandro.
¿Cómo le dicen en Puerto Rico?
Tecato.
Tecato. Este es un aspecto de Tecato, este man. ¿Sí?
Bueno, tecato usualmente se refiere más como que like drug addict,
Oh,
pero puedo usar la palabra cafre.
cafre, esa es la palabra. ¿Y cafre qué significa exactamente? Yo lo he escuchado. O sea, ¿de qué se deriva?
No puedo darle un significado específico. Es como que like,
Estoy interesado
ah,
en la etimología. Pero sí, entonces, este es el muchacho y este es el que lo valió. No sé si han visto esta foto. Have you guys seen this photo?
Yeah. But I think Bodie King posted it on Twitter. Yeah,
Oh,
like I saw that on your TL.
What did you see this, Taco?
Nah, you were the first person to show this to me, actually.
What do you think? Does it look like the dude in the video?
Yeah, sí se parecen.
Yeah, it looks like the same.
Tenía el mismo short y el
Yeah.
mismo wife beater y todo, pues.
Right.
Y el pelo, ya lo puedes ver, se parecía
And
pelo morenito.
And his body type is like the same.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's really what gave it away for me.
Yeah.
And you know, again, the issue is when we come with this reality and we've already jumped in and sensationalized and appealed to emotion, then you're just setting yourself up to be made look stupid and be discredited. So you're being lured into a trap by reacting emotionally to something, and then the truth that you're actually holding gets thrown out because it's associated with you. Am I making sense? So
Absolutely.
that's kind of what just happened here. Now, I'm about to show a picture that's very tragic, but it's another angle of the shooting. And it appears to me, and I said this to my wife, I said, I don't think the dude shot the girl. And if he did it accidentally. It looks like there's a mess. And from what I'm hearing on the streets of Chicago, is that potentially this guy actually accidentally shot his own girl. As you can see in the picture here, he has a gun in his hand. And he looks very surprised, of course, who wouldn't be? But if you look at the video, when the first shot rings out, the guy who's the shooter doesn't have a gun in his hand, and he actually is ducking the shot. And then he turns around and shoots the dude who has a gun in his hand. So, I mean, I don't know exactly what happened, and not all the videos have come out, but it could have technically been self-defense, but they're pulling a girl out. You see, this is a whole mess, and this is really where I want to get into here. And I don't want to be that guy that's like, you know, fucking stomping on these people. Like, that's not my intention again, but I don't want to see other brothers and sisters fall into these silly mistakes. That's really what I'm trying to get at here. That's really what's motivating this episode. But the reality is, I have to ask myself, the first thing that came into my mind is,
Oh, it looks like we lost Noel. So we're just gonna have to wait for him to come back. Noel?
Yeah, I lost
There
him,
he
so
is.
he's back.
There he is.
sorry guys, I pressed the wrong button and left.
He kicked himself.
Well, what I was trying to say is, the first thing that came into my mind is, why was the woman driving? Why was the woman driving? Like, it's late at night. Why would you have your woman drive? And then I have to ask myself, well, why were the doors unlocked? Well, it's because the woman was driving. But then I have to ask myself again, why is the woman driving? I personally look down on men who let their women drive, especially if they're drinking, because that means you're drinking too much. If you're drinking so much to the point you need your woman to drive for you, then you've already failed as a man, because your role as a man is to protect that woman, look out for that woman. But now you've put the masculine expectations on the woman, and women don't know how to handle that shit. Even if they front like they do, even the strongest woman, I don't care if you're a guerrillera in the FARC, a woman cannot handle this. So this girl seems to have run into a car. A bunch of niggas get wild, come out of the car. It seems like the doors weren't locked. I don't know if they were talking shit. I don't know. We don't know. But then a cackle of these people pull this girl out, It looks like the dude is there with her. He may have pulled a gun out. Somebody may have grabbed his hand. And when you're in a big crowd of people, I mean, that bullet could have gone anywhere.
Just a question. Does anyone know how late this was?
I don't know. I'm going to say it was around 10 o'clock. Just based
It
on
was after the parade was even already over.
Yeah. You can see
Yeah.
you can see cars leaving in the video, like pulling out of a parking lot, leaving.
Okay, I don't want to be like, you should be home by 9 p.m. But like seriously,
Well,
you have a kid.
yeah. No, exactly. Go ahead, Klaus. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you have a family, you have a kid. What are you doing? I think it was this was Juneteenth, right? I mean, what are you doing late at night? You have a kid for crying out loud, okay? My parents would never go out late at night because they know they have a kid to take care of, right? They sacrifice going out for a couple of years, right? Especially late at night in a dangerous country like Colombia because they knew, right? There are some things that we're just not going to be able to do because we have to stay alive for our child, right?
Yeah.
So what were these? And again, que en paz descansen. I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but I just really want to know, what were you guys doing this late at night? Why were you not at home with your child? This is what's bothering me. This is what I don't get.
That was the thing that came to your mind.
Absolutely, because I'm thinking of my parents and what they would have done, and they would absolutely not be this late at night with a baby, because it was a baby. We're not talking about they had a 13-year-old who could take care of themselves, whatever. This was a toddler, if I'm not mistaken. That their son, I think, is under 5 years old, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so. I think they may have two.
Yeah, they have two, but wasn't I was hearing that one of the kids was in the car too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know how true that is, but that's what I heard.
I mean, that's man. Again, like, what can we learn from Geo here, dude? Because if a man was driving and he accidentally hit somebody and he saw that there was trouble, if you look at the video, there's nothing blocking the car from driving forward. There's nothing blocking the car. I mean, if I'm late at night at the wrong place at the wrong time, I accidentally hit a car and all these goons are coming at me. Yeah, I'm gonna reach for my strap, but then I'm gonna realize there's too many of them. I got my woman, I got my child here. Like, I'm just gonna press the gas and get the fuck on out of there. Tell everybody to duck in case they shoot at us. But like, in order to do that, in order to execute that, you need to be sober of mind. If a woman is going to crack under the pressure of that situation. So, it's always the man's fault in situations. It's always the man's fault. The man always carries more responsibility. I hate to be that guy. I hate to take it there. But again, I'm trying to be a value for the rest of us so that these people's death can be actually honored. We learned from this tragic event. Dingy says bad parenting is the problem. Yeah. I mean, that we see that in here, I mean, the other thing that I thought, I don't know if you, Taco, if you had initial thoughts when you saw this. Noe, please, guys, share any initial thoughts when you first saw this.
For me, like, I saw, like everyone else saw, that a lot of people were saying that it was black. Me even too. Just thinking that because that's what everyone else saw. But like after maybe like a day,
the indignation blinded your eyes.
Yeah, I mean, for a little bit, but then as I started looking, at the video a little bit, you could tell. And then if you hear the audio clearly, you could hear the cops or the security guard saying it's a Hispanic. And then I also know that there be Puerto Ricans that look like that. And then, you look at the crowd and it's all mixed. And then you thinking, oh, it's the Puerto Rican Day Parade. And then I remember when they was wilding out in the Puerto Rican Day Parade in New York City a bunch of years ago. It's like, violaron unas mujeres, and like, it was all this crazy shit. I think they canceled the Puerto Rican Day Parade after that or some shit for like a little bit, or there was a big, scandal over that. So I know shit happens at parades and things like that. I mean, that's why I don't go to a lot of those things, but large crowds of people, you never know what could happen. That's just my rule of thumb. But you know, when I think about this, and I think back about like my abuelito, right? Like, and I think back about how like I always saw this man dressed in slacks and a dress shirt. You know, if I didn't see him working, and like, you know, he would do super work, but he would also garden, and he would do a lot of manual labor, right? Because he grew up cortando caña, and basically this guy was always decent, man. He was always dressed decent.
Yeah.
He would always speak decently. I don't recall hearing him really curse. I don't recall him leading a bad life, right? Like, I'm sure when he was younger, he probably made his mistakes, and you know, from what I know, he did. But like, still, the example that he gave was like of an old school Puerto Rican, one that grew up from a different time era.
Un macho.
And yeah, un macho, yo, and you know, he was always there taking care of my grandma. He was always helping my mom, helping us, taking care of us, you know, the grandchildren. You know, he had 2 children himself, my aunt and my uncle, you know, the step uncle. But you know, this was like a good man who lived a fruitful life. You know, he lived into his old age, and yeah, he didn't like this type of, like, he would call them delincuentes.
Claro,
You
claro.
know, you know what I mean? He didn't like that, and that's the result of, like, you know, living that life. Everybody knows that, right? It's like what, like our Lord said, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. You know.
Yeah, no, it comes down to that. I don't know if anybody else had any initial thoughts that they wanted to share as well.
Yeah. What I mean, when I first saw it, I think I would say that I was mostly shocked and sad because it's human life that has been lost, and especially knowing that it was Boricuas, it's like your own people. And I think that women definitely are in a more vulnerable position in general, more than men, especially in these situations. But like, I would guess that it was just something very unexpected for the couple.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, it's just a tragic scene to see, you know, a huge flag of Puerto Rico, a couple dragged out of the car, shooting, especially now that, you know, it seems that it was more inner Puerto Rican type of, this is just gang beef. It's just ghetto people beef. Again, if you look at, you know, murders in Chicago, Google that, you're going to see like 12 in the last 7 days. So,
Yo, 10 people died that weekend, dude. 10 people died that weekend. 65 people got shot that weekend.
This is some Honduras, El Salvador level shit. This is probably worse than there, to be honest.
One thing that caught my eye is that I read that the mayor, I don't know how to say the mayor's name. Lori, is it?
Lightfoot, yeah, the crazy looking lady.
Yeah. I read that the mayor had said, it was either the mayor or the Chicago PD had said that the shooter had been apparently identified, but I haven't seen anywhere like the shooter being, their identity being exposed, in news reports or anything like that. So his identity is being hidden, like regardless of like what community he belongs to.
Yeah.
For now, his identity is not being revealed, which is something that I think we all want to know.
Right. Because
I think that's a good point. Because what you were just saying, that they said that they had a suspect. My bad, OG.
go ahead.
There's actually a clip of Lori Lightfoot saying that it wasn't indicative of Black men in the city. So I think that also led to that, like that came up after her statement came out, after people were already assuming it was Black people, right? But she also said that the suspect was Black.
Yeah, she seems to have hinted that the suspect was Black. You know, that might have just been her honest opinion. Maybe she suffered from that indignation.
You know what really bothered me was Noel, exactly as you stated. There was an idiot on Twitter that said, "Oh, but what's that flag? That kind of looks like a Confederate flag." Kind of implying that, okay, you have a Confederate flag, therefore they're allowed to kill you. I don't know what the
Oh,
hell that guy was on.
yeah.
That was a real tweet, by the way. Like, you didn't dream that. That actually, someone did actually tweet that, right? Which is disgusting on a number of issues. But more importantly, I think the angle that was trying to be reached here is that, oh, but they're white Puerto Ricans though, so quote unquote white Puerto Ricans, and it's Juneteenth, so it's. I kind of saw it leading somewhere there, right? And we know the type of people who disparage quote unquote white Hispanics and probably and say, oh, that they're not really Hispanic and that type of thing. So that's what really started bothering me. It's that, oh, if they were a little darker, then it's a tragedy. But since they're light skinned Puerto Ricans, it's not as bad, or it's even okay, or justifiable, or excusable, right? This disgusting colorism of the United States, where if you die and you have the right skin tone, then you get martyred like George Floyd. But a family like this, they're light Puerto Rican, so it's whatever. I don't know what happened there, and I really find it disgusting because a life is a life is a life. Whoever it is, if you're murdered, I feel really bad for you, and hopefully you rest in peace. But I saw that and I was completely disgusted by it.
Yeah, Alfredo Cornelio just shared that up until so far this year, there's been 294 murders in Chicago, and that statistic is up 50% from the previous year. Guillermo, why don't you talk to us a little bit about your thoughts, since you're not from Chicago, but you're from the Midwest, roughly.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a source of shame for the entire state of Illinois, I would say, in which you have just like you look at the local news channel and there's probably like an insane amount of shootings, and everyone's just like, well, it is what it is. Like, that's kind of like a big thing in the Midwest there with Chicago and how they all view it.
What did you think when you first saw the video? Did you get blighted by indignation? Or what was your take as the kind of news of this event was coming out?
Well, I think the first time I saw it, Eric Stryker posted it on Telegram and said that these were blacks killing white people. So yeah, that's how I stumbled upon this.
Right. And what was your reaction to it?
I assumed it was probably black on Puerto Rican, but at the same time, I was like, I've seen everything at this point, and it's like, and there's no point in being highly invested before you even know anything at all. So I was just like, I'm gonna sit this one out and just like see what happens.
Yeah. And Taco, you brought up a point that was the next thought. So my first thought is, why was the woman driving? If the man was driving, this whole thing would have been avoided. If the woman's driving, it tells me something about the man's character. It tells me he was probably inebriated. It tells me he's irresponsible. It tells me he forgoes his responsibility as a man, and he's not carrying the burden placed on him. He's not being a steward. He's not being a protector. The second thing I thought about was the Puerto Rican Day Parade attacks of the year 2000, when women were getting raped and molested left and right. And I'm going to play some of these clips. I would never in a million years take my wife to something like this. Once I know this is what happened in the year 2000, like, I would never take her there.
Hold on. No, OG, hold on. Yo, that was a big desgracia. That was a big desgracia for the Puerto Rican community. Like,
Talk
here,
to me about it.
the older folks here, they were really upset. Like, I remember my uncle saying it was terrible. My aunt, like, it was bad, man. It brought a lot of shame to the community that people act a fool like that.
Vergüenza.
Yeah, like just so there's younger audiences, right? So like they might not remember like how it was at the time, but like at the time this all broke, it was a big shame in New York City for the Puerto Ricans.
Well, because why? Because women, we all know innately by nature that it's our role to protect women. And in these clips, you're going to see Puerto Rican men and what's probably Afro-Saxon men together jumping on Puerto Rican women and other women, even women that weren't even involved with the parade, innocent tourist women from Europe that were just walking by. And you can see that there's no sense of shame. There's no sense of honor. There's no sense of integrity. There's no sense of self-respect. There's no sense of vergüenza. You know, if you're the type of guy who you have a sister and you don't care if your sister's out there being a hoe and you just like shrug your shoulders like it ain't my problem, then like you're off the chart, dude. Because you should feel a sense of shame for the reputation your sister has in public. You should feel somewhat responsible and a guard for that reputation. That is normal. That is what's natural. We live in abnormal times. And we live in abnormal times as a natural result of what this country is built on. And we're going to get there. But let me just show you this these clips real quick.
Full screen, please.
How you feeling? I'm good, baby. How you feeling? Just once in a year, everybody is
So you hear a dude in Spanish saying, "No la deje que se vaya." So they just grab these women and they just wet them. Look at this fine, respectable dame. 1 second, sorry, you guys. I don't have. I need to find a way to connect directly to my internet, not Wi-Fi. But anyways, here it is. So this is the kind of ratchetness that I have the impression of what goes on in a Puerto Rican Day Parade. Just one last video I wanted to share. I think it was this one.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
They didn't even tell you straight up.
And Peyton Bryant skated unwittingly into the crowd. She wound up on her back.
I was completely surrounded by people pulling at me, tugging at me, a huge crowd. My thought was I'm going to be stepped on, trampled, stabbed, shot. I was like, oh my God, what is going on here?
Yeah, so they were doing this to all women, but I think the biggest desgracia, la mayor vergüenza, is that they were doing this to their own Puerto Rican women. If you don't respect your own house, why would anybody else respect it?
Isn't this something Radical Latino supports?
If they're white, I guess. That's kind of his whole shtick.
Yeah, so this is what he wants. Yeah, keep dividing yourselves up like this. Like, do this to your own people, you know, who you've been a part of since the 1500s. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't care. Well, first of all, like I don't care what type of woman gets raped or assaulted. If that is a disgusting crime, no matter the race or ethnicity. But more importantly, I don't care if it's a black Hispana, a white Hispana, India Hispana, right? Any Hispana woman who's being assaulted, raped, or whatever is an absolute crime. And obviously, I hope everyone. Obviously, I know everyone agrees with me with condemning that type of behavior. Obviously. But exactly, I think Guillermo hit it on the point. It's there does seem to be a sort of a thing there going on. It's like, well, you're a light skinned Hispanic or you're a white Puerto Rican, so it's not as bad because you have white privilege or whatever nonsense these people talk about.
You know what I see here, man? I just see ghetto culture, bro. I see the same shit in rap movie videos.
Yeah, yeah.
Do
No,
you
that's
know what I mean? This is exactly what
video came to
like
real.
right. They're getting all this stuff from the shit that they're fucking listening to and watching. You know, the stuff that's being put out as like quote unquote music or like the hood culture or whatever culture. Like, you know, because it's all commercial nowadays, right? So like the old school era of hip hop and all that started out in the Bronx when
Yeah,
hip hop was underground and not part of like the mainstream culture, like those days are like gone. Everything is produced on purpose for a point, just to destroy your soul. Like,
yeah. And earlier in the show, I had touched on the point that the Puerto Ricans were the first ones here, right? So they're kind of like the vanguard, and you know they were getting lobbed with this stuff very, very early on. Whereas now it's like you can kind of see this ghettoization, this ratchetization process going on with Salvadorians and Mexicans and other groups who may have, or Dominicans, other groups who came in, you know, more recently. But again, I think we can see a cautionary tale in the sad events, and we can see a cautionary tale in the general trend of what's happened to, I guess, what they call the New Yorican or the American Puerto Rican. I don't know. Noe, why don't you talk to us a little bit about the dynamics between kind of, you know, you're the most traditional part of the island, you're in the country, but why don't you talk to us about the perception of the Puerto Ricans here in the US? You know, share with us a little bit about that.
Yeah, right. Before I begin with that, I do agree that, you know, ghetto culture is very, very damaging to us, not just Boricuas, but like just everybody in general. And ghetto culture since the beginning has had a major disregard for women, which is why you see the things you saw in those videos, and you see that even now with like rap videos and all of that. But
Yeah,
the way Boricuas, the way we see like Puerto Ricans in the U.S., you know, it's different from Boricua to Boricua. But I would say in general, we do like to at the very least, differentiate between us and Puerto Ricans in the U.S.
yeah,
because in the U.S. they live like an entirely different life. They don't even deal with like half the problems that we have to deal with here, like on a daily basis. So yeah, so it is kind of weird to see, for example, sorry, Puerto Ricans in the U.S. Trying to say that they fight for us and they understand us when they don't even know what's really going on here with, for example, neoliberalism and privatization of our own industries. And yeah, New Yorkers, I would say, are the most blatantly Americanized Boricuas.
yeah.
I've seen that a lot of New Yorkers don't even really identify themselves as Boricua. They just use the identity on a badge, but they also like to identify themselves as black, or you know, they don't really have a deep connection with their culture, which is sad because Boricuas in New York, when they first got there, they weren't like that. I mean, salsa was created in New York by Boricuas and Cubans.
Right.
So the process of Americanization has been a very fast one, I would say, because this is something I guess you've been seeing more recently now, with like Boricuas in the Puerto Rican Parade in New York, behaving like, oh, sorry about that,
Don't worry, don't
behaving,
worry.
Being degenerate and, just not having any connection to their culture at all. I don't know if I really explained
Yeah,
myself
no,
well.
it's like we see this across the board with all the different communities here. It's like a cheapening of what it means to be, Hispanic from the home countries. It's like a meme patriotism that's very cheap. It's very superficial. There's no metaphysical to it. It's just like who's got the biggest. It's very evangelical. It's like who waves their arms the farthest in church is going to get more God points.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I think
whoever has the biggest flag is the more patriotic one.
Yeah, and I think you can see it more with like New Yorkers or just Puerto Ricans in the U.S. that are like celebrities, like Jennifer Lopez and Lin-Manuel Miranda. Lin-Manuel Miranda,
Mm-hmm.
he supported and advocated for the policies that Obama created, that created the Financial Oversight Board in Puerto Rico, which what that did is that it gave the little bit of economic power or economic autonomy that we had, it gave it away to the Financial Oversight Board. So now they have like full power of our economy, and they've just been stealing our budgets and not using them correctly.
Yeah.
And Lin-Manuel Miranda just advocated for it and didn't even I never even seen him like apologize or admit his mistake for it. And he actually got boycotted a couple of years back because he was gonna play Hamilton here, and people were mad at him for supporting those policies, so he got boycotted here. He ended up having to do the play in another theater because he was going to do it in the University of Puerto Rico.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and you still see him like trying to wave the Puerto Rican flag without even knowing what's really going on here.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's completely disconnected. It's like there's no actual love of La Patria when this kind of cheap soccer team nationalism. It's just, I don't know. It's like a consumerist pride. It's like I'm gonna purchase my patriotism, and I'm gonna display it with these items. Somebody's got to mute their mic. I think it's you.
I got a question actually for Noy. What does she think about AOC and like that tweet that she put out not too long ago talking about her abuelita and like what's the what's the perception of AOC in the island? Because like AOC's from our area, like here in like the Bronx area and from Westchester. So like she grew up in a much wealthier area than where she claims to be from. So what's your perception of Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez in Puerto Rico?
Right. I don't actually see like a lot of people discuss AOC here, so I would even say that she doesn't really even have much of an impact over here. But yeah, you can see that as well, like her using like her Puerto Rican identity and using Puerto Rico just for her own gain. And I think a lot of people, their first thought when she posted that about her abuela was like, oh, why didn't you support her? Which is very true. Like, she's a very wealthy woman. And, if she can at least put a little bit of help of over here, just helping her abuela. It's her family. So,
Sure.
Just even her helping her while she's over here would mean a lot, because she's helping someone who is in a very marginalized situation. Like elderly people are, I think more than half of elderly people in Puerto Rico are under poverty, and living under poverty isn't even an accurate an accurate calculation, because I believe it's calculated if you live under poverty, it's like if you earn a year less than 12,000, if I'm not wrong. But even if you earn like a little more than 12,000 a year, you're not living in good conditions.
Sure.
People that even live like in middle class areas, or they have like, you know, a decent job, but you know, it's not a very high paying job. Even those people struggle financially. So imagine like elderly people, they don't even have the capacity to get a job because they're old, and even the system itself ignores them. A lot of them live under, you know, inhumane conditions. So yeah, just AOC using that just for her own gain, I suppose. I would say it's very disrespectful. And I do think AOC has kind of, you know, put the word out there in some cases, like when she's talked about the impact of Hurricane Maria over here. But in general, I don't think she really does much for Puerto Rico.
Yeah, no, of course not. Of course not. It's just branding for her.
Yeah.
Duginismo wanted to say something.
Hello, is it working, gentlemen? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, my friend.
Hola, pues hola, tíos. Yo me levanté hace 20 minutos y pues estoy aquí tomando el café y quiero comentar algo.
Dale, dale.
All this is friend to me, as you can understand. What I have learned in my life is that if an American wants to throw a parade, run away. Run away if it's
Yeah.
whatever pride parade. Is it country, race, sexuality, whatever? Absolute cancer immediately. This is my conclusion from just watching the stream the past 40 minutes.
Yeah, no, I think that's a healthy decision to make. You know,
You know how I tell you, OG, that this is a joke that me and OG have in private, where I tell him that you are all black to me sometimes. And this is one of those episodes where you're all black to me. You know what I mean?
Facts, though. Facts. No, I think a good rule of thumb for any mass gathering is if you wouldn't bring your own mother, you might as well not even go, bro. I think that's a good measuring.
You know, this is part of the reason why I encourage young men to like get married, because like once you're and did they say that this couple was married though they had different last names? I don't know. I'm trying to pass judgment here, just sharing what have I observed. Is you know, when you're married and you carry the responsibility of the safety of your wife and your children, like it affects the decisions you make. You know, you're not going to place yourself in a provocative situation. You're going to try to get out of it. You're going to be alert for when it comes, so you're not taken by surprise. And this actually segues into one of the lessons that I wanted to cover here, and it's that we should all be armed and prepared for situations, especially if in places where they're generally unsafe, like a place like Chicago. If you can, you know, legally go get yourself a gun, go do that. If you can go to a shooting range and put, you know, thousands of rounds through the gun, sitting down sideways, the gun in the back, the gun in the front, all kinds of situations, and you have to mentally prepare yourself for a potential attack of this sort. When there's a crowd of people coming to your car, you have to equip yourself with habits of locking the door as soon as you get in the car. You know, you have to be trucha. You have to be alert. One channel that I would highly recommend, and maybe some of you guys know it, but if you don't, then I'm happy to share it. It's called Active Self-Protection. Really cool channel. Is this white guy, this cool white guy who, I don't know what his background is. He may have been military or police or something, but he basically just analyzes these videos. Most of them come from Brazil. A lot of them come from Argentina. They come from South Africa, but most of them seem to come from Brazil. But you see how the Brazilians are like striking back against crime because it's gotten so bad that now it's like everybody's packing heat. Everybody's learned to be alert. And I just wanted to play this quick clip for you guys. So you see the cars up at the front. They're waiting for the gate to open so that they can park it inside. And then these guys show up. That you see the guy in the hat. But watch the video.
For a reason, that these are the kinds of attacks that we see. The bad guys kind of instinctively know that when you're in your car and it's stopped, you've got your phone, you've got your wallet, you've got the car itself. So you got a lot of valuables right there. You got to pay attention in your world, because again, 3 guys walking up on a sidewalk here late at night, this is a thing to pay attention to. Notice here that they kind of split, and this guy walking down the street is absolutely a notification that something bad is happening. So notice that he is just kind of walking down the middle of the street. He wasn't, but if our defender is paying attention, maybe he saw him in the rear view mirror or something like that. Dude splits off to walk towards the middle of the street while his partner's walking towards the sidewalk like this. You have absolutely multiple attackers coming from multiple locations. So that's the time to prepare. That's the time to get ready. And our defender here clearly has his gun out already. He's clearly going to use this time to get his gun out, because watch what goes down when he decides to get his gun going. So this is the place right here I want you to see where he decides, nah, man, it's time. Notice he's looking, and notice our bad guy's drawing. Our second one is drawing. So our primary threat here that's at the driver's side door is looking in his direction. The other attacker is starting to draw his firearm, making that furtive gesture towards his waistband. And this is why paying attention is so important, because had he not been paying attention, wouldn't have had his firearm out, wouldn't have been ready to go, we would have had significant trouble in this particular case. So now as the dude starts to make his go for it, now we slow it down here, our defender is ready for him. So he clearly had his firearm out already, because that guy's draw was relatively quick. But as soon as he saw him go for it and go for his gun, our defender gets his gun up and goes. Now, this is why I think you have some advantages when you're sitting in the car, because you can keep your firearm below the sill. You don't have to show it. In fact, I would recommend you don't show it, because in most places that would be considered criminal brandishing of a firearm or aggravated assault. So you keep that ready and in position, and you can get into the fight very quickly. Now, you notice though here, what I want to see, I think his first one went into the guy, but I think his second one missed. So again, having that skill set to be able to use your firearm, because you can see the impact point of the bullet there, is that misses are not good. Misses don't help us any. The number one cause of reloading is missing. And so, okay, if he put the first shot in the guy, great. The second shot missed him, which is why we say, man, having 2 hands on the gun and enough sights and enough recoil control to get the kind of hits you need is most important. Now, using the gun as a noisemaker here worked and got these guys moving and got them off the X. Okay, fine. But I also want you to notice he misses again. So you see another miss here. And this is why a high level of skill is so important, because there's other threats to deal with in this particular case. Now, it all came out okay, but notice he has an armed man that's sitting right at his passenger side rear quarter panel that he has to deal with as well. So every miss that he has on the primary threat increases his risk from the secondary threat, which is why we want your skill set to be very high, which means you need to train. You're not going to get that just watching YouTube videos. You got to actually go train, actually go to class. I also want to notice here, look at our bad guy who is firing blindly behind him. This is how people get shot in the back in completely justified ways, and why you want to put him down, because those misses gave him a chance to shoot back, which endangered the people in the car and all the other bystanders. Notice as well, though, here we have another armed guy who is turning tail and running. And so this multiple armed attackers fight, what I see happen all the time is as soon as their force monopoly evaporates, they tend to, run off and do other stuff, which is great, but put the first one down as fast as you can, like he finally got him put down. So then that way you can assess if the other guys want to fight or not. Now, let's talk a little bit about our follow-up actions here. We have kind of, put this down into an acronym that I learned the principle from my friend, the legendary lawman, Chuck Haggard.
I just stopped sharing that right there. But you guys
Noel,
get
I want to comment on something.
Please. Yeah.
So someone had a comment previously, I think it was Alfredo Cornelio, where he says, let me find it. This is why I don't romanticize mafia, gun culture movies, corridos, etc. And I would like to say something about what I've noticed about America. And that is that you have a total moral inversion in the media, by which I mean, if you watch American movies, right, always the criminal is always the most noble person. There is nothing more noble than a criminal in an American movie. Or, for example, always the most put together, most functional woman is a prostitute in American cinema. Have you noticed this?
Yeah, of course.
And I mean, this extends to everything. Like in my mind, I'll tell you what blows my mind as an outsider.
Yeah.
the fact that there is people that move to America for presumably a better life, I assume Puerto Ricans move there because of economic reasons, right?
Sure.
And they are culturally engineered to attempt to imitate blacks,
Yes.
who are the group of people that's doing the worst in America.
Right.
I've never understood this thing. This would be like if I moved to Klaus. You have been in the Emirates, right?
Oh, yes. I have so many stories of Colombians getting into debt during the whole time they work here. And then they go back home and people ask them, what did you do during all that time in the Middle East? And como dicen aquí en Colombia, salen con un chorro de babas. I don't know. I was just there. Exactly.
No, I'm not. I don't mean that. I mean, this would be like if I moved to the Emirates and I tried to imitate the Pakistanis that are basically slave labor. You understand what I mean? It's very strange. Think about it.
Yeah, totally.
Yes,
Very strange.
I
This would
think
be like someone moving to Mexico and trying to assimilate with the Indios in the jungle that are literally just slave labor. It's really fucking weird, man.
Right. Yeah, it's like you're going to let yourself be influenced by the lowest strata in society, as opposed to, more of the higher ones in that.
Yeah, so anyone can understand. Outside the US, Black Americans are like a joke, right? I hope people realize this. Like nobody takes these people seriously.
No, the Black American, actually somebody made a point here that Black American culture is extremely influential globally. I guess I could see that, but what you don't realize is that Black American culture doesn't really exist. It's like a meme. It's a caricature that's promoted by Jews who own the music and the movie industry. And so Black people are really, and this is kind of, I think what you're touching on is like, they're the court jester, right? They're the clown that's made to dance because, it's funny, it's entertaining, but they're not a serious culture group. It's more like they're used as entertainment. And that's literally,
I don't know. Some people are commenting. I don't know what to tell you, man, but if I ever went to the US as an economic migrant, I would never attempt to assimilate with the blacks. That just sounds insane to me. I'm there to do well economically, not to be poor. That's fucking weird, my man.
Duganismo, I think it's because maybe after the second generation, I think they lose the plot. I think they don't really quite know why they're there in the first place. Because this tends to happen all the time. I think they call it regression to the mean, right? So you have the first generation of migrants, which are highly motivated, very successful, highly skilled. They open up businesses and all that. And then by the second generation doesn't really know why it's there, right? All they know is, okay, my parents came from Puerto Rico, and I'm now here, and I don't know if I'm Puerto Rican or American or what's going on. And so the kids are not economic migrants, and so they probably, cling to the lowest common denominator, which would be Black American culture, and that's where the ball gets rolling. And then you start having the third, the fourth, the fifth generation of Puerto Ricans who really should have been there to be just like the Chinese, like the Indians, like the Jews, just be this very wealth generating and upwardly mobile group, but instead they decided to kind of become ghettoized because they lost the plot. They forgot why they were there in the first place. I don't know if I'm making any sense here.
Well, I think go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say I think it's a little bit more than that, deeper than that, in the sense of E. Michael Jones out here in New York, for example, right? Puerto Ricans are a big Catholic, constituency here in New York, right? They're mostly Catholic.
Yeah.
And they lived in these neighborhoods where there was a lot of African Americans. When they got moved up, during the Great Migration, breaking up those Catholic neighborhoods. So they suffered the same situation as like the Irish and the Italians, but reverse, right? So like, since even to today, Americans don't know how to handle Puerto Ricans. They don't even understand that Puerto Ricans are like technically citizens. They think they're actually like immigrants. They're just they're island Mexicans, right? That's basically what Puerto Ricans are to the average gringo. But like here in New York, they had to live together within the poorest neighborhoods, and that ghetto culture, just like it's insidious. I mean, did you see like on Juneteenth, another lesson for Juneteenth?
Yeah.
And ghetto culture, and it goes what Duganismo was saying that
appropriate.
Black Americans are a joke outside the U.S. is those girls twerking on the ambulance when one of their dudes over there, or gangbanger or something, got shot in Oakland, right? Some gangster got shot in Oakland, and instead of like people making way for the ambulance to go so the ambulance can leave, they're twerking on top of the ambulance. And it just shows how like it's just a total debasement. They're like not even functioning like on a higher plane anymore when they're just doing stupid shit like that. There's an aspect.
Bro, not even on a normal plane.
Right. No, but what I'm saying is that there's an aspect of even just being in a crowd that makes you function as part of the crowd. And a lot of people lose their individuality. There's studies and tests on that, but like in a spiritual sense, you're kind of merged now with all this energy of everybody else, right? All these other people, all these other souls.
You're communing with those demons.
Right, exactly. So, therefore, these people are all acting in the same way that no normal thinking, rational, like person who's in touch with God is going to be twerking on an ambulance while they're trying to get somebody out of there. It's just complete chaos, complete destruction, complete like lust.
And that's American culture for you. This is just the ghetto version of it. But I don't look at Black Americans as separate from white Americans. To me, they're just ghetto white Americans. Like blacks and whites are the same to me. It's just a different acquisitive power with their money, but they all have the same values. So I don't really separate it, but this is like the ghetto spectrum. And I think, some people in the comments were saying, well, this happens because Dominicans and Puerto Ricans got more African in them. So, but then what about Mexicans in Chicago? What about Mexicans in the Bay Area? Why do they get blackwashed? Right. So Mexicans don't have as much African ancestry, hardly any at all. So why are they getting blackwashed in the Bay Area and Chicago? Well, I think
the black and brown unity myth.
Well, it's because these communities are isolated. Think about it. Think about from geography, right? If you're in Texas, if you're in California, if you're in Arizona, if you're in New Mexico, if you're in the Southwest, behind you is Mexico, right? If you're in Florida, behind you is Cuba. Right. So it's like you're not isolated from the culture. You can go to the culture and fill up your water when you run out. If you're in New York and Chicago in the Bay Area, then you're kind of on an island away from the culture. And you're alone and you're more isolated. And so then you're going to be more influenced by what else is on the island and what's more dominant on that island. So, I think another lesson to take from here is, again, the consideration is, do we want to be living so far away from the rest of our own people? Because the reality is, if the Puerto Ricans had moved to Texas, the outcome would have been a lot different. And again, this isn't about ragging on Puerto Ricans. I have a lot of love for Puerto Ricans. Some of my closest friends are Puerto Ricans. Out of all the countries I've traveled to in Latin America, Puerto Rico is the one that I felt most at home with. And that's saying a lot because I feel at home everywhere. But in Puerto Rico, it just felt like, I don't know, they understood my Nicaraguan vibe a lot easier. But again, it's like, it's there. We can use them as a lesson for the rest of us. They came in right around white flight, if I'm correct or if I'm not wrong. You had I think one of the high moments of cultural history of Hispanics in the United States history is actually the Fania All-Stars. That was a very interesting cultural phenomenon that happened in New York City. You had Puerto Ricans, you had Cubans, you had Dominicans, you had non-Hispanics even fused together, bring their folkloric music, and they made salsa music, and it was huge. It was they fought. They did the halftime show at Rumble in the Jungle with Muhammad Ali. They sold out every tour that they went around the world. Celia Cruz came out of that. Names like Hector Lavoe, Willie Colon, all these people. But even when you look at that, it's like you look at some of the careers, like say Hector Lavoe, he ended up being like a tweaker on the street and living homelessly, right? And I think he ended up dying of AIDS from like sharing needles and stuff. So, I think in these cases, you can see the destruction of like material success, money, wealth, fame, but without God, without logos, without. And the sad part is that what propelled someone like Hector Lavoe to fame and prominence and wealth was his ancestral culture, that Hispanic fusion of Puerto Rico, and then coming to New York and then fusing with the music from Cuba and DR. And so it comes from the natural folkloric expression of the logos of these, these tribal or these sub-ethnicities or these countries, right? And it flowers, and then you cut off the roots to that culture because, you're just so coked up and with money and fame and bitches and cars and all that. And then it ends up destroying you. It's like you sold your soul for riches in a sense. And I think that encapsulates what American culture is. Again, if you know English history, that's essentially what the English did. They sold their soul for riches.
It's the deal with the devil. It's the
deal with the devil. And at the end of the day, it's like we're really fighting spirits that take over these people. To make it about these people, again, I'm not a biological determinist. I'm not a physicalist. I'm not a materialist. There is another aspect to this existence that's immaterial. And I think that's where the demonic plays a role. And just like individuals can have demons, crowds of men can get demons, groups, societies, cultures, peoples, families, you can have such thing as ancestral demons. And I guess the effort here today is to try to kind of spot them and kind of break away from them, so that this type of thing doesn't continue to happen.
I do have a bit of a question / criticism of Puerto Rican. So, to all the Puerto Ricans watching and for the Puerto Ricans in the panel, hopefully take it with all due respect. I do have to ask, because I do see a lot of Puerto Rican independence stuff going on, but if I'm not mistaken, and please correct me if I'm wrong, every single time independence has been put on a referendum, it was actually the least popular option. The most two popular options were either retain the status quo or become a state. Now, maybe that's due to American influence or whatever, but surely isn't there blame to share among the Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico that want to maintain that status with the United States? In other words, having your cake and be able to eat it too. I don't know if I'm making myself clear here.
Are you referring to the plebiscite?
Yeah, because I've seen a couple of independence plebiscites, not just the most recent one, but almost all of them that have happened. Independence was actually the least popular option. So my question is, okay, yeah, we get that being part of the U.S. poisons you, but why do you guys keep drinking the poison then? Or maybe you're being forced into it. Like, please help me understand that part.
Well, the plebiscite, first of all, it doesn't really have much of a political influence. It's just really a survey when you look into it. The results of it don't really impact what Puerto Rican officials do at the end of the day. And the plebiscite actually started because the first elected governor of Puerto Rico, Luis Muñoz Marin, he was quote unquote a nationalist. He actually gained traction and support because, he promised liberty for Puerto Rico. He even got the support of Pedro Albizu Campos and the Nationalist Party. But when he got in power, he just withdrew from all of that. and he made a deal with the U.S. to make what is called now el Estado Libre Asociado, which it just means it just means colony with prettier words. That's the best way I can explain it, because it means Estado, referring to Puerto Rico almost as a state, even though we're not a state. Libre, like, it's not really a free state because we're a colony, and everything that the U.S. decides for us has to go, and we don't really get any political power. Y pues la palabra asociado, like, we're associated with the U.S., but it's through colonialism. And it made people believe that we were, sort of integrated to the US, but we also had our own political power, even though we really didn't. And within time, it proved it very much so. So yeah, like, the plebiscite doesn't really have a meaning politically. It's just really a survey, and there were
Okay,
many times.
but the survey still indicates something, right? I mean, do Puerto Ricans
Of
really
course.
really want to be independent? Because independence, that comes with a lot of implications. So now you have to deal with your own currency, you have to deal with your own taxes, your own economic policy, social
I don't think
security.
they can, Klaus, because if you know that Puerto Rico's been bankrupted to Wall Street, like I don't think they can do much. Things
That
like
I
the energy
understand.
company.
I'm not
Yeah,
talking about whether they're physically able to, whether the US will allow them or not. I'm just asking, do the people themselves even want to be truly independent? Because I mean, we can definitely get into that point where the rubber meets the road, and where a majority of the independent wishing Puerto Ricans hit a wall, and then the US says, no, you're not going to be independent. You're going to remain as you are, or actually, we're going to turn you into a state. But that's the crux of the of my question is, do Puerto Ricans actually want to be independent, or do they enjoy, quote unquote, enjoy being part of the US much more, and with all the benefits and drawbacks that implies? Because if there's a will, there's a way, right? You
Well, it's about
know,
half and half. From what I know in my travels there, and the Puerto Ricans that I know, it seems to be about half and half.
Yeah, it's
okay,
pretty mixed
fair
in
I
enough.
the
would say
States.
so too. Yeah, I would say a lot of people who initially supported independence might have fallen for the trick of Estado Libre Asociado. And I mean, I think originally Boricuas did want independence from the very beginning, because that's why Luis Muñoz Marin was voted as governor, because he promised liberty for us, but then he completely discarded all of that, which is very unfortunate. How just like one person could have changed everything for good, but just made things a lot worse.
Yeah.
He's actually the one who began the industrialization over here, process of industrialization, and
And that
started.
basically took away Puerto Rico's food sovereignty, isn't that right?
Yes, it's very true, because our economy was mostly based on agriculture.
Yeah.
And the reason why our agriculture died this bad was because we were also industrialized very, very quickly. If you look at other countries that were industrialized, they weren't
Mhm.
industrialized as quickly as Puerto Rico. So that made the economy here even more unstable. Sure, there could have been a time where there could have been like an economic boom or something, but that just didn't make it in a longer run. But I would say that also the reason why Boricuas may not support independence is just because, I mean, we've been a colony for over 100 years. And throughout that time, you got, the US wants to program Boricuas throughout, socialization and education mainly. If you look at the education here, a lot of it is based on making it seem like the Spanish American War was about the US saving us from Spain. So that's, I would say that that's kind of created a mentality of people thinking that, you know, the US is better, or that
I am
the
not
US is
giving
even
back the
better than
gold, by
us.
the way.
Huh?
I am not giving back the gold, by the way. I am keeping all the gold.
That's okay.
And the hyenas.
Oh, where was I? Oh, right.
It's okay.
And
I'll just bribe the guys with coke. They'll just.
sorry, I couldn't hear anything.
Yeah, I didn't hear you, Klaus. What'd you say? I don't know. I can't hear anything from anybody anymore. Anyways, okay. So let me.
No, I want to ask something before you go on, Ozzy.
Yeah, sure.
¿Qué coño es esta cosa del Juneteenth? Porque suena como una estupidez increíble.
En realidad no
¿Qué
sé.
significa eso?
Does anybody know what Juneteenth is?
It's the day, it's the Black Independence Day. It's the new.
No, I can explain it.
Go ahead.
All right, so there was a massacre, or I guess like a race riot in, I think it was like Tulsa, I want to say Oklahoma. It was like in the early 1900s. And I think they're saying now that this was a genocide, and like now they're calling it Juneteenth.
No. That's not Juneteenth. No.
You sure?
No. Yeah, I'm sure. So Juneteenth is actually a state holiday in Texas since 1980, and it's meant to symbolize the day the last slaves were emancipated. Because back in the day, obviously, news travels quite slowly, right? So from the Emancipation Declaration, it took some time for the news to get out that slavery was now banned, and so word got to a number of Texas slaves who were still being held as slaves that slavery was no longer legal in the U.S. and that they were free to go, that type of thing. And I think it was a general that proclaimed, you are no longer slaves, you are free, and that happened in Texas. And ever since the year 1980, that was a Texas state holiday. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I got disconnected, so let's check. And so what happened last year was that, if I'm not mistaken, then President Trump was having some discussions about Juneteenth, whether to make it a federal holiday or not. Whatever the case was, he did a rally in Tulsa on Juneteenth last year. And maybe, Billy, that's why you got yourself confused.
I think that's what I was thinking about.
Race,
yeah.
right? Yeah. you was listening to Biden too much, bro, because Biden last year said that exactly. So even Biden himself got confused. Well, I mean,
I am just astounded by the stupidity of the name, personally. It sounds so dumb. Juneteenth.
It's Ebonics. It's the first national Ebonics holiday.
So this
You keep going out.
This year, okay. And
What the fuck? Who's talking
Can
about?
you guys hear me now? Any better?
You keep disconnecting, G.
All right, hold up.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea.
This thing, this Juneteenth thing, is this celebrated by just the negros, or are the other people involved as well?
I think
rich white people. In my village, it was just all rich white people. Do you get off for this holiday?
Well, actually, guys, there's an important story here. So,
Angelo, are you here?
I'm here.
Oh,
guys, they were...
Sorry, I'm hijacking. Go on.
I know. I was gonna say, like, there's an important thing to point out here, in that, and then I lost my train of thought. Fuck me. God damn it.
It's okay. Okay, so Juneteenth and some bullshit holiday like Kwanzaa. It's just like let's give the blacks something to celebrate about, like Black History Month, I guess, or whatever the fuck. And white people sign it, and these things are always like meant.
Wait. I know what it is. So basically, there was like a debate over like whether to make Juneteenth a national holiday. The Democrats wanted to do it, and the Republicans were like, "We'll give it to you, but we don't want too many like paid holidays. So can we swap out Columbus Day for Juneteenth?" And that's like what they said.
Wow.
We should honestly reassert Columbus Day as el Día de la Raza.
Conservatism.
Yeah. I don't know much about it. I don't keep up with like late events in America, to be honest.
Maybe we can rebrand Columbus Day as Syphilis Day, because that's the most impactful thing to come out of that relation. It did kill Henry VIII. Maybe that's why they hate us. So
damn, they're mad. They're mad because that Taino syphilis got Henry VIII somehow. That means that one of his hoes was screwing a Spanish guy who had screwed some Indian girl in the island.
The Anglo fears the Boricua.
He's
sexually intimidated by him.
Oh,
and
of course.
Syphilis.
That's right.
That's right. Anyways, let me wrap up a little bit here. Somebody in the chat earlier had brought up that these women were kind of asking for it for the way they were dressed, and when we were watching the Puerto Rican stuff. And it's like, yeah, of course, but at the end of the day, these women are also a man's responsibility. Her fathers, like, where are the men? Why aren't the men correcting their women? You know what I'm saying? We have to realize that we are stewards of our sisters. Like, even if a girl's not related to me, and I don't really care what race she is, to be honest. Like, if I feel the comfort in the moment, like, I'm going to tell her, like, yo, girl, you shouldn't be dressed like this. Like, you're bringing in the wrong type of attention. But especially if she's Hispanic, I'm going to want to tell her even harder. Like, yo, you're inviting, I've been in situations where, like, I had a bunch of, like, homegirls, girlfriends, right? And they would like to go out with me and the boys because they know they were going to be safe and we're going to have a good time. We're going to go out clubbing in LA, blah, 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 blah. And, like, sometimes I notice that these women take advantage of knowing that they're kind of a safety net, and they'll be even more provocative. And I would, like, pull them to the side and be like, yo, like, you're looking for trouble. If you start trouble, that means that one of us is going to step in. One of us is going to take out a knife or a gun. Somebody's going to get hurt. Somebody's going to catch a case. So it's like, why are you trying to get us to get a case? You know what I'm saying? So I think that's kind of a good strategy to use with women, but we have to correct women. Like, women are looking for correction. Women will push the boundaries. They will push up against the corral to see if it'll electrify them. And if it doesn't, then they're not going to respect you. Women are looking for barriers to be imposed on them. That's how a woman's spirit knows that you care about her. Even if she bitches and complains and scratches and bites you in the process, you are showing that woman that she's more important than you superficially pleasing her. That satisfies the woman's soul. So, and I saw a lot of the comments that, people were bringing up, like, Mexican girls, pochas in California, in the West Coast, that are kind of very much Americanized, very much into the feminism. And this reminded me of when I was on Twitter. I got banned on Twitter like 7 times in a row. Every time I got to like 500, 700 followers, I would get banned right away. And the people who would ban me every single time were either white nationalists and Latinxer pocha girls. It was the Mexican girls from the West Coast. They did not like what Rancho was talking about. They were the ones white knighting for the blacks. They were the ones even white knighting for the whites in a weird way, even though they're supposedly against them, but they have the exact same values as them. So I know that there's a huge problem with the pochas. And my recommendation to the pochos is leave these girls alone. Do your best. Go back to your ranchos. Go back to where your grandpa's from. Try to find another girl. Get a Dominican girl. I don't know. Find a girl from a different country. Get a Salvadorian girl. Let the pochas breed themselves out. Get an Asian girl. We need to Hispanicize the Asians. We have a lot of Asians in the West Coast. They need to be Hispanicized. So that's the point I wanted to make. The women, yes, they're dressed provocatively, but at the end of the day, that's also a man's responsibility. If a man's living righteously, correctly, then he will have the authority that women will naturally submit to. They'll be like, oh, this man's respectable. I'm going to listen to what he's saying. But if the men are out there acting like fucking monkeys, molesting girls walking by, then they're not going to have any authority. Then the women aren't going to listen to them. They're just going to laugh at them like, nigga, who the fuck are you to tell me anything about how I should act? You're the pinnacle of immorality. The last point I wanted to wrap up on before I open the show to everybody and we can go back and forth is this is an example of kind of what I was saying, that we need to be very careful to not be lured into traps. You know, when this whole thing with the black and white thing started last year and the riot started, I kept telling Hispanics, like, stay out of it, stay out of it, stay out of it. Pretend it's your biracial neighbors. It's a biracial couple. It's a black lady and a white dude, and they're beating the shit out of each other like they do every once in a while. And like, you don't really, you know, you're cool with them. You try to be nice to them, but like, you don't really fuck with them as is. They don't really fuck with you as is. Their kids are a bad influence on your kids. And like, just stay away from these people. Stay away, stay out of the fight, because what can easily happen if the pick me line takes over is that the pick me is going to be like, yeah, man, so let me clean up the Negro problem for you. Right? Like, it's not our problem. America's racial issues come from America's own historical development, its own mistakes. It comes all the way back from England. That's their problem. They have to sort it out. Don't go white knighting and defending the poor white guy because he's kneeling to a black dude, but he likes it. They got weird kinky fetishes for each other. These people are nasty. They act like they hate each other, but they love each other. So don't get in the middle of it. When events like this happen, try to remain calm, try to remain dispassionate, really question what your eyes are seeing. Really, you know what I'm saying? Don't fall into the trap, because what happens is people fell into the trap, and then now we're going to be discredited on key facts. So first, let me play this video, then I'm going to show the key facts, and then I'll open it up. Thank you for everybody for being patient here.
Miren esto. Una pareja latina puertorriqueña que llevaba la bandera de Puerto Rico en el carro, los sacaron del carro y les dispararon. ¿Y quién les disparó? Negros. Es lógico que no todos son iguales. No se puede generalizar. Pero hay un problema en este país que está sucediendo y el hispano no está viéndolo. Gracias a Black Lives Matter, este tipo de personas están haciendo y deshaciendo en las ciudades y se creen con la capacidad y la autoridad de venir a hacerle daño a otros. Ya hemos visto varias veces cómo ellos les pegan a asiáticos, cómo les han pegado a la comunidad hispana, y ahora tenemos este caso desafortunado que los medios de comunicación no han hablado. Pero esta gente ha sido alimentada por Black Lives Matter, un grupo marxista, el cual no me voy a cansar de repetirlo, porque...
Real quick. Another thing that you should avoid is falling into boomerisms. Like, this girl's calling Black Lives Matter Marxist. Like, this is sponsored by Nike, my nigga. Like, this is sponsored by Google. Like, don't fall into boomer dialectics. That era is over. We're not in the Cold War. Don't fall into left-right dialectics, communist, capitalist dialectics. That's just another version of the black and white dialectic. Don't project your own country's history and its development. If Hugo Chavez took your cows, like, don't fall into that shit, because it's just, again, it's just making us stupid.
But Noel, doesn't their manifesto literally say that they're some form of revolutionaries type thing?
Yeah, so what? So is liberalism.
Okay.
So is liberalism. The real issue is liberalism with a capital L, not liberal Democrat Party. The Republican Party is also a liberal party. The real issue is liberalism and its product that ultimately culminates in modernism. And between those 2 points, you have capitalism, you have communism, you have fascism, all natural reactions to the depravity of liberalism. But it's still part of the trap. We need to go back to tradition in a new way. But we need to recapture the world that the stupid elites of our capitals let go of to try to copy what the French and the Anglos were doing, which was liberalism, which is where all this bullshit comes from. All the things that eventually decompose into what we're seeing happen in front of us right now. Let me just finish this video.
Y que ponen a un criminal como George Floyd como ejemplo.
Is she Colombian by any chance?
She looks like a paisa to me.
She sounds Colombian. Yeah, because obviously, I guess we fall for the dialectic more than others because we've lived it a bit more.
Yeah.
So I
I mean,
can
but
certainly understand
yo,
where she's coming from.
But the thing is,
Rancho.
like, dude, like when you go, if you want to break down Marxism, like, okay, well, Jewish bankers bankrolled, the capitalists bankrolled the Bolsheviks. It's like you see what I'm saying? Like, you don't follow.
That's for another day, Rancho. But as the communist here,
We have
I'm going to have to put the brakes on your Americanism, my friend.
I've tried on the last with fascist.
Yeah, we'll come back to this topic. But my point
Communism is when the Jew gives you money and you race mix.
Yeah,
you know this.
Sounds lit.
Okay. So my point is, don't want to be the cleanup crew for the Anglos because they like it. They're masochists. They like getting tied up. They like getting.
I mean,
choked.
you literally are though. Like you clean the pools of the Anglos in California.
It's fine to do that for a living. But what I'm saying is don't do it for the mess of their country. Let them keep doing what they're doing.
What I'm explaining to you is that in their mind, they're doing it because this way they get to become Americans.
Yes.
Right? This is how it works. You're buying in. It's like
and that's why I want to showcase this stuff, because it's like, what are you trying to join? The American Party, the peak of this party, the point where it was fun is way in the past now. Like there's nothing to join here. These people are degenerate. These people have no love of self. They're not reproducing anymore. Their system didn't work. It was great to build railroads and skyscrapers, but existence is not purely about railroads and skyscrapers, as we're learning.
Duganismo is hitting a very deep point, and really we need to discuss that a lot more of the migrant communities, like just the people who just arrived on the boat, right? Not the ones who've been there for 3 generations, because a lot of them aren't just seeking to be economic migrants, like my father in the Middle East. They seek to actually integrate themselves into the United States. It's the whole American dream thing, in 2021, which is very cringe, but they don't know that it's cringe. They don't know that America is essentially dead. And as you said, you're joining a party when it's already over. Not that it's ending, it's already over.
Exactly.
Like it's 4 a.m. You know what I'm saying? Like we need to have a serious conversation with the fresh out the boat guys about why you shouldn't try to chase the American dream. You just try to chase the buck and then leave, right? Make your money and then set up a business back home.
Right. So let me touch again. Let me just wrap this up real quick. Again, let's avoid falling into these traps, because now when we come at them with this, which is what I'm sharing on the screen, when we come at them with the actual facts, they get overlooked and discredited. Well, because it's like you cried sheep or you cried wolf already. But if you look at these statistics, Taco, I don't know if you're there.
Yeah, what she said was like actually accurate, because we've seen what's been happening. That's why, they're like, oh, it's just isolated incidents, but you see video after video after video. But because she's wrong in this one instance,
yes,
then that's it.
That's all. They only need you to get it wrong once to undo the facts, to be able to throw the facts away in sensationalism. They only need to make you look stupid once. So you have to be really careful when you're being lured into reacting. Reacting is what they do because they've been animalized. They don't have rational thought. They don't have a moment to think. They don't have dispassion. They're just passion. They're just reaction. But if we look at the statistics here again, remind me how to read these. So Hispanics from this group, from these statistics, it seems, are the only group that attack themselves less than the outsiders. Is that correct? It seems like, if I'm reading this right,
yeah.
Blacks attack Hispanics 32% of the time, where Hispanics attack them 9% of the time. So 3 times is the difference. And Hispanics attack whites about 17% of the time, and whites attack us 22% of the time. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay, so whites don't attack us twice as much. They attack us about 1.5 times as much. One is too many. Anyways, my point is that if you combine the gringos, if you don't get lost in the gringo bullshit propaganda, because they're both gringos, you're looking here at 54% versus 43%. We're the only people that you see that pattern in. Everyone else is attacking themselves. See, whites attack themselves most of the time. Look at blacks. They attack themselves most of the time. Hispanics, about a little less than half the time. So this is the issue. This is what we need to talk about. You know, it wasn't more than 2 years ago when white dudes killed the innocent Guatemalan man. I know the black dudes will rob a Guatemalan man selling fucking ice cream on the streets and hit him for no fucking reason. Well, white dudes out there guat hunting, and we can't overlook that. And this is just what's reported. You know, Hispanics don't call the cops. So that's the point I want to leave on. Don't fall into the traps, because at the end of the day, you're going to set everyone else back, because they're going to be discredited by your emotion. So just be careful, man. Question your eyes. Don't believe your eyes. See it 2-3 times before you make a video. I know you want to be the first one to make a video. I know you want to put it out there. I know you want to, but there's consequences to this. And of course, most niggas are just going to shrug their shoulders off, but that just shows that they're niggas. So, just be conscious of that. Anyway, so I wanted to share the link with everybody. I don't know if you guys have any other points you'd like to touch on. I'll probably be here for another half an hour or so.
Yeah, just one point. I don't know if you guys can hear me properly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think the lady said something very interesting. And I think Bodie King shares something very similar. It's so how come George Floyd dies and everyone makes a fucking like big deal out of it, but then these guys die and like it's barely news and there's no protest and there's no like what's going on out here? Is it because there's no narrative you can build off of it? Like if it was a white supremacist shooting these guys dead, could we hear more of their story or their tragedy? Like what's going on out here?
If you can somehow make whites look bad, then they probably would have. I think one of the cases that we should all really think back to is Vanessa Guillen, who I think was a Mexican girl in the military who got killed by a white girl and a black dude. Like, if that doesn't show you what America does to a negatal, right? What it does to us, then I don't know what other case does. And Vanessa Guillen's case was completely overlooked. You had a black American and a white American woman kill a Mexican girl. But then I got to ask myself too, why is a Mexican girl in the military in the first place? This is what I'm talking about. When the Colombian girl got beat up by that black dude in Miami, the first thing I asked myself is, what the fuck is she doing on a train at 10 o'clock by herself at night with her fucking face in the phone?
Yeah, my bad, bro. I should have chaperoned her. Nah, but seriously.
You should have. That's what it takes, bro. We need to step up to that. We need to go back to that level of expectation from men. And we need to shame men. If any of my Puerto Rican men in my audience today felt a little pissed off because they felt like I was busting balls too much, like, that's good. That's probably a sense of shame. And you should turn that sense of shame into coal, into the train of righteousness. So you can go and correct things that you see are wrong. First off with yourself, then with your family, then with your neighbor and your community at large. Shame is a good thing. Shame has been gone from America, which is why it's going into destruction. If you're Hispanic and you still have a sense of shame, thank God for it. We got a few guests here. Jane Boxing, if you want to make a point, but go ahead.
Oh, what's good, bro? It's
What's up,
TC. I want to say, man, do you think, all these caravans of Central Americans that have been coming the past 5 years, do you think they're all going to become, blackwashed like how the Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, and Dominicans are?
I don't think so. I don't think so, because they get to benefit from living in a Mexican area. If anything, they're going to get Mexican washed.
But OG, if I'm not mistaken, isn't Biden prioritizing LGBTQ Hispanic immigration type shit with that thing?
I have no idea. I don't keep up with the news, to be honest.
Hold on.
Well, look,
Yes, this does happen, but NGOs just tell them to say it.
And
soy gay, güey. Déjame entrar ya, güey.
But back to answer your question, Chichi, is that, you know, if they go to New York, if they go to isolated pockets where the community isn't vigorous, like I know there's a lot of Salvadorians in DC, and that's kind of isolated, right? But Salvadorians are fucking vigorous, right? Like they may be small, but you know, they're macheteros. They're not gonna back down. So you know, I think their community there is quite vigorous. You know, it's quite self-imposing. I think with the Northern Triangle of Central America migrating a lot, and they seem to migrate mostly to Mexican neighborhoods or Mexican areas. They might go to New York, they might go to Chicago, sure, but I think overwhelmingly the communities are going to
say because, yeah, I was gonna say because okay, because there's a lot of migrants that come to my city, but they all get shipped out, and one of the cities that they go to the most is like the South, like North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. A lot go to Atlanta, Georgia. They don't stay in Texas. A lot of these Guatemalans, Salvadorians, Hondurans, they all go to Georgia.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. They do get shipped out, and you know, whenever you have different people, there's always a cultural diffusion that goes both ways. But you know, I don't know. I think something about the Northern Triangle of Central America, it's very indigenous. It's very like connected to that, and you know, and a lot of people bust the balls and they say, oh, they're very Protestant. And I think the reality, they became Protestant because the Catholic Church stopped being Catholic, and they were looking to maintain some kind of family tradition, you know, amidst all these changes. So, you know, I don't even hold that against them. These people tend to be very traditional. They tend to be very conservative. And if you look at their birth rates, they're probably some of the highest amongst Hispanic America. So it's a good question. You know, it would be a shame, but something tells me no. They're just too bravo. You know, there's the Spanish could barely conquer the Mayans. The Aztecs could barely dominate that region. And, you know, these people come from them, you know, so I just don't see it. I don't see these people being dominated by outsiders. They might incorporate some of it, but I don't know. I don't see it. At least I hope not.
Salvies are base. You hear that, Angelo? But anyways, Cephas, what's up, man? You haven't made a point yet.
Yeah, and by the way, you guys, if you guys want to be cycling out to give some space, because I got a lot of people seem trying to get into the show.
I gotta go anyway, so you know. Thank you very much for bringing me in. Hope you guys have a good one. Dios los bendiga, se cuidan.
All right. Good night, Klaus. Yeah.
Thank you for having me. Bye bye.
You're leaving, Noe? Okay, gracias, mama. Ahí no volvemos a hablar. Que Dios te bendiga.
All right, so I guess it's my turn to talk. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't really follow the shooting story because ever since last year, I've just made it a point not to pay attention to the news because it seems that every single story is getting me or someone else riled up. Every single topic, from the Cootie virus to George Floyd to the shit that went down in January 6th. So I didn't follow this story, but I was just wondering if what we're seeing in that Juneteenth shooting are second or third order effects of feminism and the sexual revolution. Because the way I see it, women were emancipated and basically gender roles were reversed. And the sequence goes is that women are emancipated, and then they become competitors with men in the sort of things that men used to do. The result with the breakdown in sexual morality is that women essentially become sexual toilets. Men get left out either because they were edged out of the workplace, or in this hookup pickup culture, the majority of the winner men are actually, it's a minority of men who get all of the spoils of war, And
Yes.
so men are left out. Men resent their loss of authority and role. And because of how women have debased themselves through poor morals, men disrespect them both via fornication, adultery, and for the losers in the sexual marketplace, I think there's a sort of vicarious revenge that comes with every time a woman suffers. Hence, we have the manosphere and the MGTOW movement. So they all, no, it's totally true that, I mean, I couldn't get into that sphere because as much as a loser as I was, it was driven purely by revenge. They just love watching women suffer in whatever way possible. And it's like, that's just demonic. And I just wanted to point out,
Petty.
Ron.
Yeah, it's petty. It's just fucking petty.
Yeah. I just wanted to point out, Rancho, that it is good to tell men to shape up and step up and reclaim their role as protectors of women. And admonishing sinners is a spiritual work of mercy. And the thing is, men have become so effeminized, both white men, obviously, and black men, because of hip-hop culture and this entire culture of resentment, that they've lost a sense that they have any responsibility whatsoever to women. I mean, we like to joke about white knighting, but in a traditional society, women don't go out by themselves because you don't know who's lurking around in the corners. It's not, we don't live in the end of history like Francis Fukuyama says.
Yeah.
It's the liberal order is collapsing and failing at a horrific rate, and the jungle is coming back, but it's men, responsible men, Christian men, who created civilization. And importantly, they have to set the rules. They got to wear the pants. They've got to put their fists down and lay down the law, because if you don't, then what happened at Chicago on Juneteenth is going to happen again and again and again.
Yes. That's very true. You know, I know from my personal experience, when I would be sent to Nicaragua for the summers, you know, I had a shit ton of girl cousins and I'd be the youngest one, but like my aunt and my uncle would be like, you have to go with your cousins and you have to watch. And I remember I used to carry a fucking hammer in my pants because that's all I had as a fucking 11-year-old to protect these women. Like, you know, it was, if I didn't protect these women, the expectation from me was that I would be less of a man. You know, and that's a good expectation. That's a good pressure to put on young men.
It's a knightly virtue.
Yes, exactly. So that they can grow into that role. But anyways, let me get Derpster. What's up, dog? You need to do the show, Hispanic man, and then Hodawalo, and then we'll circle back.
Yo, what's good, bro?
What's up? Who's
Man, it's my first time on. I know you've been waiting to have me on. Hear my take, which I'm a retard, so I don't really have that much to talk about other than just like to say my personal experience about just meeting you and finding about your channel.
Yeah.
And how I'm not gonna lie, this the concept of pick-me's and the concept of like the Teamsters,
yeah,
like I kind of knew like that dialectic dynamic like in the back of my head. I've been like I'm just gonna say it, I was a pick-me before I fucking learned about your channel and about
we woke you up
for real.
Pick-meism.
Huh?
I said, did we help wake you up out of pick-meism?
More or less, yeah, pretty much. But like I've been watching like all of your like live streams, yours and memos or Guillermo's or whatever you would call them.
Yeah.
And I've been like just talking to like all like making friends, like all these like everybody on the Hispano Twitter. And I don't know, it's just been like really eye opening about how instead of trying to pretend to be like white, just embrace your culture, which I am. I'm Hispanic. I'm half Honduran and half Mexican.
Nice.
And like just embrace your culture, embrace what you have instead of like looking into like this deracinated white, American culture that supposedly I don't know, we're
Right.
supposed to fight for.
You reflect that your culture, for better or worse. I mean, dude, we have our problems. Like, Lord knows we got our problems and we got serious problems, but they're our own unique set of problems. They don't spill over into our neighbors. There are problems. But the reality is even beyond those problems, our roots are still green, like, and I'm talking culturally here, right? Like our culture, for one reason or another, it could be poor, it could be dirt poor, but our culture is still green. That way of life, those values from 500 years ago haven't gone away. For all the TV and Netflix subscriptions in Latin America, they still haven't gone away. So when you reflect and you think like, okay, you know what? Here you have the nice shiny object within the plastic packaging. But I have a tree that I can just pull the raw fruit from. I don't need shiny packaging, right? And so it's like that's what we're trading in. We have a mango tree or an organic mango tree, and we're trading that in for freeze dried half a mango sliced from Trader Joe's in this little package that's 3 times the price of the mango and half of the nutrition of the mango.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're doing when we adopt the mannerisms and the values, more than anything, the values of what America means. And what America means is the shopping mall. It's the global shopping mall.
Yeah.
It is. It's all it's ever been.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I kind of
mall dictates
saw this thing.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I kind of saw this dynamic about America, like when you really think about it, like us, like Hispanics or whatever, just in a broad sense of term, like how do we view our America? How is America our home? When really, like, why do we leave our home countries? And like, I don't know, I see America as like, my conclusion was that it's like a bodega. It's like a 2-story, like the first story is like a store, and then like the second story is like, oh, the place that we live in. That's not even our home. We like rent it. And I see it like, okay, this is not our true home. Like our true home is like what we make of it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. What has to happen is we need to reflect on what is it that made us, right? What are those ingredients? What is that value system? What is that story? What is that story that brought us to this point? And obviously the history on both sides of the Atlantic goes back millennia, but really it was 500 years ago when these two worlds came together and created something new. And the more we understand that worldview, that history, that culture, that understanding that the people had back then, not the understanding that you have now being projected back then, but just take it for what it was back then and then start building forward from that point. That's the exercise we need to do as a people if we want to survive this storm. If we want to wait this storm out, which it is going to pass, and if you look at the moment, again, from a demographic point of view, we're very young, we're very numerous, and if we don't bite more of the apples that they're selling us, if we don't fall into their squabbles, if we just remain patient, if we look for God above all things, then 1 or 2 generations from now, there's nothing to do. There's no war that needs to be taking place. There's nothing. It's just, well, I had 6 kids. How many did you have? And each of my kids had 6 kids. How many did your kids have?
That's right.
That's it. And then at that point, that's it. There's nothing you can do. Nothing they can do. So our salvation, our preservation lies in the feeding of our roots that are still alive. There's a lot of trash over them. They're pockmarked with bullet holes, but they're still green. So let's go back to the roots and try to like nurse the roots back so that the tree can be strong. Whereas when you look at
Exactly.
these people are completely deracinated. They cut their roots off a long time ago. And the tree has only stayed alive because of science magic, not because of nature.
Yeah. I mean, I see like this thing that's going on with like what like Guillermo says about what he gets into about how like all these different ethnicities like Italians and Irish, how they just morphed into, they lost their cultural root and they just became like regular white people.
Yeah.
And this movement that I've seen that's like growing further on like the right wing conservative side of like politics. I'm pretty sure you know who Nick Fuentes is, right?
Yeah, of course, of course.
Well, let's just say I was big long time viewer of his, and what I keep what ever since like he's been like getting big, like people, everybody from like regular conservative people to Wignats see this guy that's like, you know, moving further and further up, but he looks like white, but he has the name Fuentes.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
always find it kind of funny, like, okay, how is this like the new leader of the conservative, you know, right or far right is a white looking Latino man? Like that always sat funny with me in this American, and I don't know.
Oh
What do you
yeah,
think about that?
you're always gonna be a second class American, and this
Exactly.
is something that I tell our Islander brethren. Right, you're from Honduras, so Honduras has an African element too. This is the same thing that I tell to our brethren on the chocolate end of the spectrum: is that you're gonna be a second tier black. If you go with the Afro-Saxon who has a degenerate culture, who isn't reproducing, who's suffering from the same issues of his Anglo relative, because they're related, whether they like it or not, they're related, you're gonna be just a second tier black.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is stupid. And if you're on the lighter end of the spectrum, you're gonna be a second tier white. Just be Hispanic, where white and black doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference at the end of the day. You can overcome whatever complexion of skin you have. It's seen as a complexion of skin. It's not seen as a scientific subgroup of humanoid. We're not autistic German people.
Yeah.
So yeah, let me keep cycling through here, Derp. Hispanic man.
All right.
You're new to the show. You want to say what's up?
Yeah, thank you for having me on. It's my first time on as well.
Sure.
I'll just give my perspective, I guess, on what happened to that woman, the whole thing that happened in Chicago. I mean, personally, the way I see it is, I mean, I think it's very probable that she was very likely involved with some type of gang or something like that. But I mean, I live here in the South, like in Texas, around that area, Texas, California.
Yeah.
And I'm Hispanic myself, and I work in these construction sites with, mainly, with Mexicans, Central Americans. And really from the reaction that I got from them when they heard about it is they didn't care too much. And I think they didn't really care too much because I think there's actually quite a big disconnection from maybe the Mexican, Central American communities in relation to the Caribbean, more Afrocentric communities. I don't know what your view would be on that.
Can you repeat that last part for me? I lost a little bit of the audio.
So it seems like when I showed, like, for example, at least from the perspective here in the South, where it tends to be, Mexican and Central Americans, like Guatemalans, when I showed them the news of what had happened in Chicago to that Puerto Rican couple, they didn't tend to really care too much. And the way I see it is I think that there's a big disconnection between the Caribbean Hispanics, I mean, what we would call the Puerto Ricans, Dominicans,
the
the Islanders, in between, in comparison to, the Mexicans, more Central Americans like Salvadorans, Guatemalans. And I don't know how you would see that. How do you see that? Like, because I see it, I do think it's a division. It's a quite big division because, I mean, these, at least here, like I said, here in Texas, California, where it tends to be more Mexicans, they tend to stick more together, Mexicans and Central Americans. And than
Well,
when yeah.
I think again, it's a matter of how far from the border you are, because the dynamic of Mexicans in Chicago and Northern California is kind of similar to the dynamic of the islanders, right? So it's like, it's not so much being from the islands, it's just being so far from the border region. Whereas like, Hispanics in Miami can be ghetto, but like they're still very Hispanic, right? But if once you're in New York, once you're in Chicago, once you're in the Bay, you're kind of separated from the border region and its influence. I think you're right on something that you touched on, where I think the Mexicans of the Southwest feel disconnected from overall kind of the Caribbean culture. But I think one thing you guys have to realize is that in actual Mexico, it doesn't work that way, right? Like Mexico and Cuba are very close geographically, but also very close culturally and politically and socially. Latin America, I think what I've learned recently from dealing with pochos a lot is that it's a lot more integrated than you guys realize. Like you're gonna find Hispanics of every country in every Hispanic country. Like if you're an engineer from Mexico, you probably worked all the way down to Chile and every country in between if you're some kind of specialized engineer, right? And in that process, you might settle and you might marry a Peruvian girl or whatever, whoever you ended up marrying. So it's like that happens a lot. We're a lot more integrated. The music is a lot more shared than it is here. Whereas like I think here in the Southwest, like we feel a little isolated from that. Different dynamic, I think, from like Florida or the East Coast. But I think one thing that I would give to you guys is just realize that in actual Mexico, it's way more integrated than the Southwest is. In the South, like you're kind of by yourself, and yeah, you're right. You don't really have that exposure. But I still
have Puerto Rican cousins. Like, my uncle married a Puerto Rican woman.
You're up at the top. I know a lot of Mexican Puerto Ricans, like from Chicago. I know families and families in Mexican, Polish. So it's like, but you're up there. But I think if you're like from LA, if you're from the Southwest and like you don't have contacts or connections to like the other sides of the US where the Hispanic people are, if all you know of Latin America is like the pueblo your mom is from, then like really your only chance of interaction with an outside Hispanic is if like your homie happens to be from Nicaragua, right? And then now you can venture out into beyond that. But one of the things that I noticed personally within my generation of Mexicans in LA, of pochos in LA, is I've seen a big rise in entrepreneurship. And because of that, you see more ties and connections to like the Miami Hispanics. Like I have, several Mexican friends of mine that I grew up with who've gone into business and they have like satellites or they do business in Miami because they do business with Latin America, right? So it's like that integration is kind of starting to happen now. Whereas maybe in the 80s and the 90s, it really didn't exist, which is why you're not so exposed to it. But I think now it's starting to happen. Just like Taco telling you he has cousins who are half Puerto Rican.
Yeah. I also think, one of the reasons I see that divide is, I guess one thing you mentioned was, culturally as well. Like if you look at Mexico, it comes from a more mestizo kind of indigenous European mix of music, in which like the Caribbean tends to be more of an African European mix, right? So it's I don't know. I think that
I understand what you're saying, but I don't fall into the trap of bringing this down into biological determinism.
Yeah, well, I understand. I'm speaking more of culturally, like culturally. Yes. That's what Mexico is, and I've worked with. I'm Mexican myself as well, and I've worked with tons of Mexican Central Americans, and we really do break our backs, and construction sites.
Mexicans and Central Americans used to be part of the same country, like 2 or 3
Yeah,
times.
absolutely. Yeah.
A lot, even before the Spanish got here, Mesoamerica was a thing, and they didn't have these borders. So for sure, there's going to be more similarity. Within Latin America, there's spheres of kind of more of certain cultures, right? Like the Caribbean culture isn't just the islands, but Venezuela, Colombia, the coastal side of Colombia, maybe the southern half of Central America, some kind of in between zone. Then you kind of have the Andean area, right? Then you kind of have, the Southern Cone area. Then you have like Brazil, which is like probably 6 or 4 different kind of sub areas within itself, even Mexico as well. What part of Mexico are you from, by the way? I wanted to ask you, where your parents from?
Well, my parents, I'm technically half Mexican. My mother is Chilean, and my dad is from Guadalajara.
Okay, and so you inherited a lot of kind of your dad's identity, I'm going to assume, which is good.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. That's kind of interesting. You're half Andean, right? Like you're from the Andean region. You're from
I took a DNA test actually, and yeah, I got like 36% Andean.
Guadalajara, in its own influence, is very much its own region within Mexico, and it's a very unique culture. And you can definitely contrast that with, say, like the culture of kind of Veracruz or even Oaxaca, which isn't even that far, but it's still very a different regional culture. And Mexico is a huge country. Mexico is really like probably 7 countries at the very least clumped together, I would say.
Actually, I had a question about something that I don't know if you might find curious. I think you've heard before of the Mexican mafia, correct?
Sure, of course. I'm from LA.
Yeah. So I saw on Wikipedia that the Mexican mafia actually has an alliance with another white gang called the Aryan Brotherhood.
Yes.
And I want to know what your view is on that, because I've also heard like a lot of reports. I don't live in California, I live in Texas, but I've heard a lot of reports of like the Mexican mafia ordering like their smaller sub gangs to kind of like wipe neighborhoods off of
that happened in
Americans.
the early 2000s. There was pretty much a green light on the black gangs. Probably somebody didn't pay their tab. But to be honest with you, all these gangs is very much business orientated now. So you'll have the Mexican mafia also have connections with black gangs. And as long as the drugs are flowing and the money's flowing back, then, there's peace. And there's like a detente within the prison system in Southern California. But I wouldn't necessarily assume that the Mexicans are more down with the whites because they're white. It's just politically expedient. It might just make sense with the dynamics of the prison system. But it's not because they're white. It's business. It comes down to business. It really comes down to business. And that's actually kind of an issue because, the greed for money kind of blinds you from doing the right thing sometimes. But yeah, let me keep cycling. Thanks for joining the show. Jorobado, did you want to make a point? And then I'm going to bridge over to Brothers Abroad Travels. Thanks for being patient. Go ahead, Jorobado.
Hey guys, how's it going? I actually wanted to talk about something that in terms of building the cultural barrier, that perhaps there's a bit of a business opportunity, actually, particularly with all the economic instability. I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen Argentina. They've had like a massive amount of inflation going on. Now, like the dollar used to be, I think, around 20 pesos in 2018. Now it's like 160. So I would be interested to hear thoughts just from anyone in the crowd about one, probably setting up a language school or something like that. Mm-hmm. And due to the fact that it's actually like kind of like, taking a book out of the hyper capitalist, taking a page out of the hyper capitalist book in which you basically offshore labor.
Yeah.
But in this case, it would have a bit more of an ends, because the end would be, maintaining the language, which is very hard out here with all the outside influences. And especially now with, community college doesn't seem that bad, because you can still kind of get a good, decent education, at least language education. Mm-hmm. But once you start getting into the university level, I experienced this myself. It's hyper politicized. So you're like, let's say you're interested in taking Spanish and you're doing university studies. You're gonna run into like the Chicano studies. That's just like unavoidable. So yeah. I was curious, because if the sort of the mindset is, okay, well, this is just a shopping mall empire, and we should just basically loot it. There's no cultural bonds to build here. We already have our own thing going on. How viable that would be, particularly with everything moving to the cloud, and a lot of these cloud companies basically like eating up the market space with a lot of a lot of companies more or less moving to the cloud, you know, especially with COVID and everyone moving their infrastructure. I think that would actually be a pretty interesting business opportunity, particularly for those who are here in the United States.
Yeah, no, I think we should definitely be talking because like in the background, we're kind of working on some stuff right now. It looks like the show will be hitting 1,000 subscribers pretty soon. So that's kind of cool. It's been 10 months. It's been fun. Again, none of this has been to try to get subscribers. It's just, you know, us shooting the shit like we would do at a family party and just getting together, and the conversation's kind of grown out of that. But we have 2 specific projects in mind that I'd like to share with you. Do we have each other's email? Yes, I think.
No, we don't actually. I think the last like direct contact we had with each other was on Twitter. And
I'm gonna put are you on Telegram?
Yeah, or just you could just give me your email. That would actually be
okay. Yeah, I'll give you my email, and we should just hop on a call and I'll introduce you to the other guys that were working on some stuff because we're kind of talking about what you're touching on.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. So we can expand on that, and I'm trying to bring that around like right where we get to around the 1,000 mark, so we can just kind of launch it all together and kind of go into the next phase of this animal that we put together. Anyways, brothers abroad, why don't you say what's up, man? I don't know you. Nice to meet you.
You said a lot of things. Well, a lot of people have been saying a lot of things. So,
nice to meet you.
You too. First and foremost, I want to say, when it comes to the LA thing, like you were bringing up that the girl has been beat up by some black dudes or whatnot, but since you've been living in LA, we both can agree on that. The gangs on the Mexicans and the blacks, that's been a forever war. Do you agree? Do you agree on that, right?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure what girl you're referring to.
You brought up the LA situation where the girl was beat up by blacks, right?
No, you're talking about the girl in Chicago who got shot? What are you talking about exactly? I'm sorry, I really don't follow which one you're talking about.
Okay, so the point that I'm trying to make on that is that blacks and Mexicans, the gangs, they've been in this beef forever. So there's been losses on both ends. So it's not just a one-sided thing.
For sure. I would agree with
that. Okay, so another thing is that a lot of people that speak on Mexico, they never been to Mexico. So I don't know where they're getting their knowledge from or their references from. Now, a lot of people also don't know the difference between ethnicity and nationality. So let me just point this out. When people say, "Oh, I'm Mexican," they're really Chicano. They were born in America, but they're a descendant of Mexico. Just like a lot of people say, us black Americans, we're not African Americans because we were not born in Africa. My nationality is American. I'm not African from Africa. So right. I make that point to say this. Now, when you talked about the divide between, let's say, Mexicanos and Chicanos, there is a big difference. And let me explain the difference. Culturally, you know, us black Americans, we can't just go to Africa and be like, hey, we all the same, brothers. The people from Africa will be like, no, the fuck we're not, because you guys are not from our continent. You guys are not from our culture. So the same applies for Mexicanos and Chicanos. At the end of the day, Chicanos are descendants of Mexicanos, but they're culturally American. You know, they may have a few cultural things from Mexico. So I just wanted to point that out. Now, another point that I want to make about
hold on. Let me address that point real quick.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you're right. There is a kind of a gap, but
a divide. It is a divide.
We've talked about the Chicano phenomenon a bit, and to be honest, like the Chicano thing is really more of a certain generations of Mexican Americans, because the newer Mexican Americans who just got here, they're not Chicano. They're, if anything, they'll be called pochos.
Okay.
Which is kind of why we call the show that, where like they haven't been there. A Chicano is a deracinated Mexican. It's a Mexican who's lost his language, lost most of his traditions. He's just kind of kept some of the aesthetics and you know, some that sense of heritage. But you know, he lost being Hispanic. He lost being Mexican. He's become Americanized. He's become brown. He went from being Hispanic or Mexican and mestizo or whatever he is to just being a crayon color, right? There's black, there's white, and then there's brown. That's kind of what a Chicano is. Now, that's not to say, don't assume that all American born or American raised Mexicans or Hispanics are disconnected, because a lot of us travel back and forth a lot. A lot of us live, back home for a couple years, and we come here for a couple years, and we go back for a couple years. So I wouldn't just assume that line is so clear, the gap is so huge and there's no bridge over it.
Okay. Now, if I may, let me ask everybody on the panel just a really quick question. Can you guys tell me the difference between a Latino and a Hispanic? Anybody besides you, OG? I want to know their raw definition of it.
Why not me?
No, because I want to see how informed they are about if they're Hispanic or Latino, if there's a difference.
It's a black pop quiz.
No, wait. No, I want them to give me their definition. What is the difference between a Latino and a Hispanic?
That's why I said it's a black pop quiz. So I'm just gonna let them.
I mean, I'll go for it, right? So to me, Latino is basically anyone south of the U.S. border who has a Latin derived language. So the Portuguese, Brazilians are included in that, and it's more of a French term.
Okay, let me intervene really quick. Just to clarify. So when you say south of the border, are you referring to the United States border, or which country are you referring to?
Yeah, in the south of the United States.
Okay, so LA, for example, San Diego, right? Right?
No, I mean actually past Mexico, so all of quote unquote.
But
Latin
you said the United
America.
States. I'm referring to the United States.
South of right. So you're asking for what's the difference between Latino and Hispanic?
Yeah,
Hispanic is someone who identifies only
without knowing.
Right. No, but what I'm saying is that Hispanic is someone who identifies primarily with speaking the Spanish language in Spain. Like a Brazilian or a Portuguese aren't Hispanic, but they would be quote unquote Latino, right? Or Latin, right?
That's a bit confusing.
So no, but I'm saying that's where the term is divided on.
So Latin,
it's the language.
So
Latin is more of it's more of a language. So Haitians would technically be Latin Americans because French is I think a Latin derived language. I mean, you can even say French people are Latin, quote unquote. But when somebody says Latin America, it would include places like Brazil, places that speak.
But in Brazil, they speak Portuguese, though. They don't speak Spanish.
And that's a Latin derived language.
Yeah, so, English is a Germanic language.
Okay, so what about Latino? Let's get to Latino now.
So the words
I want to let them explain to me. I asked them specifically.
I appreciate and I respect that you did, but I'm the host of the show and I got to run it. I'm just going to address your questions for you. So the terms are essentially interchangeable.
Interesting. Very interesting.
The difference is that from the Hispanic point of view, that we have to realize is that the term Latino came about because of the French. The French influence specifically in Mexico. Porfirio Diaz was influenced by positivism, and they kind of ran with this Latin thing as a way to kind of, include the French into the party, which is really like the Quebecois, even though they don't call themselves Latino. Latin means you're from Latium, which is a province of Italy, right? That's what it means. And none of us are from that province. Now, the language that we speak. So
why do they identify themselves as that?
So the language. Curious. Yeah. So the language we speak is a vernacular form of Latin. Essentially, Spanish is like an Ebonics version of Latin, right? Portuguese is an Ebonics form of Latin. So, Portuguese and Spanish, I'm not sure if you know, are very mutually interchangeable. They're almost 50% interchangeable. If you speak, I think they understand Spanish better than we understand Portuguese, but most of us can read Portuguese and know what they're saying. Portuguese is very similar to Gallego, which is another regional dialect of Spain. So, the term Hispanic comes from the Roman province of Hispania, right? Which was the Iberian Peninsula. Another term that they use a lot in Latin America is Ibero-American, which is trying to reflect Iberia. Again, because we want to place emphasis that we are united with Brazil and Brazil is united with us.
They don't claim it.
That's not true. There's like
I have a lot of friends. They personally have told me that they don't identify themselves as Latin Americans. They're just Brazilians.
So everybody
this is what they tell me.
Yeah, that's fine. Everybody has friends. So just like you have friends, I have friends. But my friends are the heads of political movements in Brazil, right?
I can say that too, though.
Sure. Give me the name of the political movement.
I can just say that I can. That's it. Just like everyone else said. You got friends, they have friends. Let's move on.
So no, here's what you have to understand. You don't know. You're an outsider. You're trying to know. I'm being kind enough and patient enough to try to educate you. And now you're trying to teach me. So it's like, I thought you were here to learn. If you're not here to learn, then you're here to just annoy. If you're here to annoy, you should get the fuck out. So do you want to have a dialogue or do you want to be annoying? I'm waiting on you. Are we going to have a conversation or not?
You're still mute.
I'm here to have a dialogue.
So, okay, so just try to push back a little bit less. It's like, I'm not fighting with you, dude. I don't have a competition with you. I don't know who
Neither am I, though.
But I can't talk without you trying to get in and trying to push back and say that they don't claim me. Like go to Florida and you'll see Brazilians married with Colombians, married with Nicaraguans, married with Cubans. I mean, I don't know where you're getting this from. There's a literary tradition in Brazil and in Portugal that completely negates everything you're saying. The Shakespeare of Portugal said that he's Hispanic. So again, from an outsider perspective, especially if you're from an Afro-Saxon perspective, you're not going to get it. And if you want to get it, you should at least be humble enough to say, you know what, this is outside of my world. Show me from your perspective. But to think that Brazil is not integrated with the rest of Latin America, that's silly. My maternal last name is a Portuguese last name. You think the Spanish and the Portuguese didn't go to each other's countries? They were from the same country. They just had two different kings for a time, and sometimes they even shared a king. So if you're trying to understand the dynamic between the Hispano world and the Lusophone world, if you think they're different, I mean, you can go ahead and think that. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up?
Well, yeah. Well, I'm not going to expand on that, but another thing that I wanted to bring up when it comes to the culture of blacks that goes to your title about Juneteenth. Now, I would just say and ask you guys, how has any Latin American culture influenced Black Americans specifically? And I need examples. Anybody on the panel can answer. I'll wait.
How has who influenced Black culture?
Latin American cultures in their homeland has influenced African American culture, or let me stop using that term, Black American culture, with examples. I'll wait. I'll let the panel respond.
Well, first, let me go first. I would say very little. I think Black America is very disconnected from not just Latin America, but Africa as well. I don't think you guys get any influence unless it comes from Anglo America. But I'll let anybody else jump in at this point. I'm getting a little bit of feedback from you, brothers.
No, that's not me.
Yeah, it is you, because when I mute you, it stops. Why are you so sassy, dude?
What was the question? Can you repeat the question?
Dude, we're getting echo from you, brothers. I know you don't want to say it was you, but it is you. He said, has Latin American culture ever influenced Black American culture? And I said, if it has, it's probably very little, because you guys don't get any outside influence if it doesn't come from Anglos.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
What I know there was West Indians and Puerto Ricans involved in hip hop. I recently found out that jazz was influenced by Mexican big bands in Louisiana. So that's pretty much the only. I mean, a lot of dudes like to act like they're Tony Montana and they're Scarface, and they try to act like they're Narcos. all I want to be is El Chapo, that type of shit. I don't really see anything outside of that. I guess when reggaeton came out, R. Kelly made a song with Wisin and Yandel. Like that's all I can really think of. It's like kind of superficial shit. And would you agree or disagree with that?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, you.
I think you misunderstood my question. Let me repeat it. How has Latin American countries and their culture influence Black American culture? Let me give you a specific example. Now, Black Americans, we created rap and hip hop. So I can easily say, hold on, wait a minute.
Didn't Puerto Rican?
You said that I could respond. So let me go ahead and talk. So I'm giving you.
But I already mentioned hip hop, and I said, didn't Puerto Ricans have a hand in that?
They got it from Black Americans.
Oh, okay. Well, I know some Puerto Ricans would disagree with you.
Okay, that's perfectly fine. So let me go back to my example. All I want to give you is my example. That's all. I don't want to argue with you. I don't want to be interrupted.
I know, but what's the overall point you're trying to make?
The point that I'm trying to make is that a lot of you guys talk badly and degrade Black American culture, but we have influenced you a lot of Latin American cultures heavily, but you guys haven't reciprocated that same influence on us. That is my point. That is the point of your topic of your live.
So let me address the point.
That is my point.
Sure. So let me address the point real quick. So I wouldn't go as far to say that you've influenced Latin America. I probably nominally, but it's just really American culture. And again, I wouldn't call your culture yours, because hip hop wouldn't exist if Jews didn't bankroll it and promote it across the world. Like, you are tap dancing for Jews on camera, and you're calling the culture yours, but you don't own the record labels. You don't own your masters. You're the jester being brought in to do his thing. So I would be very careful with calling it yours, because if it wasn't for the Jewish capital promoting your stuff, who would have ever heard of NWA, for example? Who would have ever heard of it? Who would have ever heard of Def Jam? I mean, Rick Rubin was in Def Jam. So, I find it very interesting that you call it yours. Now, let me address why our culture doesn't influence yours. And that's actually a point that I've brought up, that I always say Black Americans are not African. I always say that a white Puerto Rican girl, or even a catracha from Honduras, a mestiza, well, even if she has very little African admixture and it has more African in her culture, because that element in the mixture has never been, its roots have never been cut off. So the music, Africans can listen to Latin music, Hispanic music from the Caribbean, and they'll dance to it. And guess what? If you go to if you go to Colombia, if you go to the islands, why are you laughing? If I can prove this, if you go to the islands, we actually listen to African music, like from Africa, like Afrobeat, like from Nigeria. Like that music actually plays in Latin America, because there's a certain similarity with how it sounds to the Caribbean music. So, but that doesn't happen here. Black Americans don't know any artists from Africa. They don't know any artists from Latin America. So yeah, you guys are very isolated. You only know stuff within the Anglosphere, and that's it.
Can I respond?
Sure.
Okay. Without you getting emotional, all due respect, but
I'm not emotional. Though. You're the one being sassy.
You're talking over me again. Let me explain. That's what I mean.
The show, brother. What do you think? You think you're gonna come to the show and run the
show again? I'm trying to explain, and you're talking over me.
Yeah, but in the process, you said I was emotional. I'm not emotional. I'm just taking charge of my show. I mean, that's what my job is. You're the one who's being sassy. So
sassy, you're being emotional.
How am I being emotional?
Same thing.
Me having a strong voice on the microphone does not equate emotion. I'm not being emotional. I'm just talking strongly so I can dominate the conversation, because it's my show. But
okay, so getting
defensive.
So if I can go back to my point that I was trying to make.
Make your point, please.
You keep bringing in this African, that. I specifically told you Black American. American.
That's why I
How
asked
has
you,
other Latin American countries and their culture have influenced us
very little at all.
on a
Very
higher
little at
scale?
all. If any, it has very little at all. What's your point
But
of
we have influenced your cultures. That is my point.
culture? But bro, ghetto culture only exists and is propagated because Jews signed you and
Do
put
you know a ghetto is a place, right? It's not a mentality.
yeah. It
It's a
doesn't
place.
matter. It doesn't matter. The Jews put you on camera.
It doesn't matter now.
So that you can tap dance for the world. And you're acting like this is my culture. Ghetto culture is not culture, dog. Taking beats from soul songs in the 70s of live instruments and playing them over and over again and then rhyming over them. If you think that's culture, then fuck.
Why you sound jealous over it though?
Who said it? I've never used the word jealous. What are you talking about? I said
I
Jews.
said you sound jealous.
Jealous
by being emotional over it.
Sir, what is there to be emotional? What is there to be jealous about? You don't
You're rambling about it.
Hello. What am I doing on the show? This show is basically Noel Salinas rambles. Like that's what the fuck it is. That's what the whole platform is. Welcome to the show. So you're getting mad at me because I'm doing my job on my show. I don't understand. What is there to be jealous about Chief Keef, bro? Come on, like, don't you respect yourself as a man? What is there to be jealous of any of these niggas? They got money? Like, that's what it is? Like, money doesn't buy you happiness, bro. You're such an Anglo-capitalist to think like, oh, I got a roll of this, as if we don't have money. Come on, dog. We just value things above money, like family, like self-respect.
Who included money in this conversation?
Dignity. Well,
did I mention money?
I'm trying to think of what is it that you think that we are going to be jealous of rappers.
I didn't say you all. I said you specifically because you are the one that is being very emotional over Black Americans creating music. No, it doesn't matter who promoted it. We created it. So you are being emotional over it because we were promoted by Jews.
Sorry,
that's your point.
There's no, just because I'm speaking strongly does not equate emotion.
No, you're rambling and you're being emotional about it. That's all.
The show. What you're doing now is you're giving me ammo for rambling, right? You're coming on the show and you're giving
females ramble.
Okay, well that's I guess
grown men have discussions. Grown men have dialogues.
But how am I going to have a dialogue with someone who's sassy? If you want to have a real dialogue, then you have to.
Can you define what sassy is?
Yeah, it's stopping me when I'm explaining to you about Brazil.
Oh, I thought sassy had a whole different meaning to it, but go ahead.
Well, it's just kind of like, go ahead. The way you swing your head is like your mom would do it.
Wow, so you're judging my mannerism.
Isn't
That's
that what's
a big gay?
Well,
That's a big gay. Judging a man's mannerism is a big gay to me.
So judging my tone isn't gay, but
and if you are, I'm not judging. That's all I'm saying.
Explain to me how you can judge my tone and say I'm being emotional, and I can't judge your mannerisms and say you're being sassy. What logic are you using?
The only thing that I was trying to make, the only point that I was trying to make before you start rambling was the whole purpose of going to your title of this live. Y'all continuously talked about black this, black that. So all that I was trying to say is that
the show was about Puerto Ricans mostly, and it was about the dangers of Americanization. Blacks were hardly mentioned. This show was not about blacks, dog.
Okay. All right.
I mean, if it touched on blacks, it's only an extension of Anglo culture. Again, I said it very clearly. I don't see a difference between you and a white American. I know you think different, but I don't. To me, you're both.
Also, let me throw this out there.
Hold on, just listen. You're both gringos. So if I'm talking about,
do you know where the term gringo comes from and what it means officially?
I've heard different stories of it.
Oh, so you don't know.
You see, that's what I'm talking about. Fast. Like, that's such a stupid, cheap point. Like I said, I've heard different versions of it. I don't know
but you don't know.
It doesn't fucking matter. You're still a fucking gringo. Like,
all right, go ahead.
What's your point? You're still a gringo. I know you think you're different, but you're just a deracinated Anglo who happens to have black skin. Which is why you call yourself black, because you don't have an ethnicity. You only have skin color.
Okay.
Just like a white person doesn't have ethnicity, they only have skin color. But notice we don't call ourselves a skin color. We call ourselves Hispanic because we have an actual ethnic root in history and culture and tradition and
which a
custom.
lot of people that call themselves Hispanics do not know about.
That's neither here nor there.
Come on, man. This is common sense.
I really don't even know what you said. You just said something. You just said words, because that's what you do when you don't know what to say. You just fill in the space with some words, and hopefully it hits something. Let me move on. Black Brown Unity enthusiast, welcome to the show. Black Brown Unity enthusiast, welcome to the show. Okay. I'm going to kick you because you're not saying anything. All right, you guys. I don't know if anybody has any final points, but
yeah, Rancho. I want to say a few things. So before there's actually any type of black and brown unity, those numbers have to change. And it's kind of like it's kind of like hopeless for me to ask Black Americans to stop attacking Hispanics because they attack themselves at a high rate. They're actually the biggest threat to the biggest threat to Black Americans is actually other Black Americans. So yeah, there's gonna be no Black and brown unity until those numbers change. Until Black Americans stop attacking Hispanics less than Hispanics are attacking themselves. And white Americans like to talk about how much Black Americans attack them, but they are also attacking Hispanics at a higher rate than Hispanics are attacking themselves. So yeah, that pretty much just destroys the whole Black and brown unity thing. Until those numbers change, you can preach Black and brown unity all you want, but if those numbers don't change, there isn't going to be any type of Black and brown unity.
I really, yeah, no, I understand everything you're saying. We've already kind of echoed that, but I really don't understand what Brothers Abroad Travels is bringing to the conversation. Like,
I know what he's getting at, man. Like, these are my last thoughts, yo. My last thoughts is like the questions that he's asking about, like, okay, we've influenced you. Right? He's saying we've influenced you and you don't show us any respect. And that the whole thing about modern day Black Americans is they want to be validated, they want to be pat on the head, and they want to be told that they're special and seen and recognized and validated. And like he wants us to say thank you to them for something.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
they want their participation trophy.
Because I listened to Wu-Tang Clan when I was a teenager. Like, I don't owe you anything, bro.
Yo, how about
does Wu-Tang Clan owe Chinese culture because they ripped off fucking kung fu movies?
I think Rancho that Hispanics have to stop seeking validation from gringos, whether they are white or Black in general, because we have to validate ourselves. We have to approve of ourselves. And if you're a Hispanic and you're born in America, well, good. That's good. You're going to help the rest of us that are not born in America somehow, reclaim what belonged to us at one point or another.
Yeah, I'm more interested in Hispanic unity than I am brown or Black or white, whatever that. I don't care about any of that. I'm more interested in us unifying as a people. I don't care about the phenotype. I'm sick of that Anglo shit.
Yeah, let me make this last point about who cares? Like, hip hop is trash music. It's bad for Black people. It's bad for all people who listen to it. That's nothing to be proud of. Sagging your pants and wearing jewelry is nothing to be proud of. Like, that's something, if anything, you should be ashamed to have contributed to the world. You should deny that it's an invention of yours. So, it's just like it's petty, it's silly. But anyways, Jay, did you want to make a separate point? Go ahead, boss.
No, I was just saying I don't care about like phenotype and all that shit. I'm more interested in Hispanic unity. I don't believe in this Black unity, brown unity, white unity. Like this is like Anglo shit. I don't care about that. Like I want Hispanics to be unified. beyond white, black, brown. I don't. That's silliness.
Yeah. And that is what naturally is occurring. It's just that we're finally coming into like a consciousness of it. And we're finally putting things to words. And the gringos are making it easier for us, both the black and the white ones, because we definitely don't see ourselves in them. Kilo, did you want to make a point, dog? What's up?
Yeah. Ask Tyrone. What's something positive that they influence anyone, not just Mexican. I mean anyone. I'm giving them a good, white space here. Put something positive, not immoral, not disgusting, not faggot shit, not drug dealing shit. So, gang shit, none of that. Go ahead, dog.
Butter.
Tyrese.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, he's. You have anything else aside from hip hop that isn't tied to street culture or criminality that Black America has influenced us with?
Well, it would go back to it will go back to music, aka Latin trap. That's a clear example. That is a perfect clear example.
But he said it. He said things that aren't street culture.
Street culture. Music is music.
Something that's immoral.
Music is a way to express yourself.
What about music? What about music that isn't from the streets, that isn't ratchet, that isn't glorified ghetto values and culture? Is there anything of higher culture?
As far as give me an example.
American be grateful for.
Yeah,
something that we should say, you know what? Thanks African Americans for giving us this. Anything of higher culture, not street.
You know what? Matter of fact, you're right. But it comes back down to you Latin Americans that were born in America. It's called the 14th Amendment. I was going to bring that up also. So if it wasn't for us fighting that fight, y'all wouldn't be Americans at all. Y'all wouldn't be in our country and to enjoy the benefits that y'all reap.
I love it.
The 14th Amendment. That's a perfect. So y'all should appreciate us, specifically Black Americans, for that, for putting up that fight, for having those Anglo-Saxons allow you guys to be able to be born citizens here. If it wasn't for those Anglo-Saxons that OG talks crap about, they allowed you to be American.
Okay, hold on, Kilo. Just real quick. We were here before Anglos ever got here. We had already established 2 or 3 cities in Florida, in New Mexico, and in California. As far as the 14th Amendment goes, the United States went to war against Mexico, and
I don't care about none of that. I don't care about any of that. The point is the 14th.
I don't care about your 14th Amendment. We don't
Why did you mute my mic? I'm speaking facts.
Because you're being annoying and you're not letting the audience listen.
He doesn't care about any of that, but he wants us to care about his bullshit.
The 14th Amendment, like, okay, so you're saying that none of us would get the right to vote? Like, who cares? We don't even vote in majority. Like, most of us don't vote. Most of us that can vote don't vote. We're not here for citizenship. We're here to get this money. That's all we're here for. We're just here to stack up some paper and go and do some more in our home countries.
OG, don't be ignorant. That's the 15th Amendment, having the right to vote as a citizen. That's the 15th. Don't be ignorant.
That's why they fought? They fought for us? Is that what you're saying?
Look, bro, with all due respect.
American is a broad term, right? So
hold on. With all due respect, you guys didn't even fight for your freedom. It was given to you. So if you're going to tell me that you fought for the 14th Amendment, is like, nigga, I don't know what your proof is.
We paved the way for you guys to be American citizens.
We don't care about citizenship, and we don't care about your constitution. We'll
get a passport and go back to your native country.
No, we're going to stay here, and we're going to take over this country, and you're going to have to deal with it.
You're our native country, bro.
You're the one who goes to Mexico.
Tell them about
let's bring it back right here. Let's bring it back here.
Okay, hold on. We'll go one at a time here. Go ahead. What's your point? Yeah, go ahead.
Are you talking to me?
Yes. Yes, I'm telling you, we're here to take over this country. If you haven't noticed, if you haven't been able to read the writing on the wall, we're here to take back the lands that were historically ours. That includes Florida.
Good luck.
Well,
I would say good. I would say good luck with that. But also, let me point out one thing. Let me point out one thing.
In Mexico, and from what I'm hearing, you're
Can
kind
we
of
have a conversation?
Yes,
Or are you just
and
gonna scream over each other?
Well, if you don't interrupt me, I won't raise my volume. It's very simple. So let me get
monotone.
You're actually helping us because you going around whoring in America means that there'll be less of you next year, right? So you're reproducing yourself into non-existence. So it's happening naturally. The Black American population is in their 40 millions. You guys aborted 40 million over the last 30 years. That means that you've aborted half of what your population would have been twice as big if you didn't abort them. You're pushing 40. We're barely in our 20s. You know what the average age of a Hispanic within the United States is? With not
You're going out of the context of what I said. Let's bring it back to the 14th Amendment.
Hold on,
you
sir,
guys should appreciate us for fighting that fight. In order,
I've already responded to you. We don't care about your constitutional rights. We're not
we'll
here.
go back to your native country.
Okay, and I've already answered that one. We're here to take over yours.
Where are you right now? Why not go back to Nicaragua?
Because I want to take over California.
So you want to reap the benefits. Got it.
No, I want to conquer it.
You're welcome.
I want to conquer
You're welcome.
Bro,
California was part of Hispano-America.
Hold on, you guys.
But what is it now? It's
Sir,
part of the United States.
Sir, I live in Los Angeles, California.
Yeah, Los Angeles, LA, I know.
You didn't build California. California was already built, and the Anglos took it over in a war. Well, guess
And
who
owns it right now?
Well, guess who's taking it back?
Bro, why are you being emotional?
How am I being emotional?
Oh, what did we do? That? Come on, let's talk like grown men.
Yeah, you're not acting.
This is talking like a black woman, bro.
You keep repeating the 14th Amendment as if we gave two fucks about your Constitution.
All you gotta say is thank you. That's all.
But I don't gotta thank you for shit. You didn't even fight for your own freedom. Why would I thank a people who didn't even fight for? At least the Haitians fought for their freedom. I'm not trying to
look, dog. All you gotta say is I appreciate y'all for helping us get that. That's all.
Here.
That's it, bro. You don't gotta get in your feelings.
You know what I appreciate Black America for? You know what I appreciate Black America for? I appreciate Black America for oldies, R&B music, R. Kelly before he got in trouble,
and calling them niggers. I know that part.
Sade, but she's Nigerian and from
and calling them niggers.
Calling
that
who
part.
Calling who nigger?
Yeah, remember that part. Yeah, we don't remember that part. All right, we're gonna let that slide right now.
Wait. What are you referring to specifically? I was giving you props about R&B and oldies. I'm finally giving you thanks for something, and you're whining about the word nigger. What are you talking about specifically? I'm not sure what you're referring to when you said that.
Go ahead, continue.
No, I'm asking you. I don't understand what you were talking about. I don't know. Okay, so I like Heat Wave. I like Earth, Wind, and Fire. I like that. I like D'Angelo. Maxwell, he's half Puerto Rican, half Haitian, so I can't give thanks to you guys for him.
But these are all musicians.
Yeah, that they don't produce.
Can I ask you something?
They at least produce like music.
That's crazy.
Go ahead, Kilo.
Everything that you're grateful for, I'm grateful for too. But I've got to ask you something. If you could take it back, considering what they've done and how they've damaged our culture and every culture.
Oh yeah.
That's specific.
What I'm saying.
Who?
Does it even out, or would you take?
I'm asking who. Who are you addressing? Who are you talking?
I'm addressing OG.
He's talking to me. So he said, basically, if I understand you correct, Kilo, you said, yes, the Heat Wave is dope. All the oldies music that we like is dope. That they don't even listen to.
Yeah,
we're the ones who actually keep that music alive. But would we let them keep that so that we stayed away from like the degenerate hip hop culture, right? Is that what you said?
Yes, considering what yes.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. It's like you keep it. I'd rather not have R. Kelly. I'd rather not have D'Angelo if it means that no Hispanics were ever influenced by Black urban culture. Because Black urban culture is not a good thing. It's not a good thing for Black America. It's not a good thing for white America. It's not good for Asian America. It's not good for Hispanic America. Black urban culture. Black urban culture has been a disaster for the human race.
He's under the impression that they did us a favor somehow.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, but hip hop is not
Machista culture is not good for any culture. And don't mute me when I say that. Machista culture is not good for any culture.
Okay, so you made your point.
Agree?
Being a man is not good.
Okay, so you made your point. Now let me respond. So that's not true. Patriarchy is a good thing. It's why we have a sense of shame in failing to protect our women, which is why we at least have a consciousness to be able to call each other out on it and say, hey, yo, bro, you're kind of messing up. You guys don't control your women because you have no machismo. Your culture is a matriarchal culture.
So machismo is about beating the hell out of your women.
That's not what it is. No, that's an
No, it's about proper headship, which you lack.
Oh, gee, you're arguing with his mom right now.
Yeah, I know. Go ahead, Cephas. Cephas, you were making. Cephas,
you were talking about the definition about sassy, and the definition of machismo is something completely different from what you're talking about. What you're talking about is misogyny.
Yeah, Cephas, make your point that you were going to make about headship.
Yeah, machismo, patriarchy. The essence of a man is to have authority over his wife and his children. And if you're just screwing around, getting women pregnant, and then leaving them so that you can go on to round 2 and round 3, and all of their children are just, you either abort them or you abandon them, that's not machismo at all. That's being a fucking animal.
Interesting. It's interesting.
Let me ask you a question. Why are you in
Very
Mexico?
Interesting.
Why are you in Mexico?
Why? Because I love the people and I love to explore the culture.
And why though? Isn't the culture you're kind of
right.
Yeah, we don't want you in fucking Mexico, you dumb nigger. Fuck off.
Who are you? You're nobody. I don't even know who you are.
Fuck off.
Jerry. You're not helping yourself for the show. But anyways, brothers.
So did I explain why I'm in Mexico?
Not yet. So do you like Mexican culture more than American culture?
Well, they're balanced. There's some things I like about both cultures.
So there's some things you do like about Mexican culture. What is it about Mexican
culture? Of course.
What is it about?
I like the language. I like the way that the people treat me out there.
How do they treat you, Americans?
Well, they treat me like a person with respect, not because of my nationality. And I'm not talking about Mexican Americans. I'm specifically referring to Mexicanos.
Yeah. Why do you think Mexicans treat you with respect and Americans don't?
Well, Americans do treat me with respect also. Don't get it twisted. But we're talking specifically about la cultura mexicana.
But I asked you what's different.
¿Cierto? Sí or no?
No. I'm saying
you specifically asked me a question about how do Mexicans, aka Mexicanos, treat me in Mexico. I'm directly answering your question.
No, you're not. I said, how is Mexican culture different from American culture, and what is it that you value about Mexican culture over the American culture? And you told me, well, they treat me with respect. And so then I asked you to clarify it. I said, okay, are you saying that they don't treat you with respect here? Why do you think that is? And he just got lost in the woods. Let me add real quick. I got 10 more minutes. Shaquisha Bennington. What's up, girl?
Rancho, check the private chat.
Okay. What is it? What is this? Did you guys click on that link? I don't like just clicking on random links. Has anybody clicked on the link?
It looks like it's a YouTube link. I'm guessing it's safe, but I'm not sure.
Most beautiful.
Oh man, I would click on it, but I'm on this. Hold on.
I already clicked on it. It's a YouTube link to something. Hold up. Maybe they
I
want me
didn't
to.
know.
Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't know that was a Negrito Grande. I've been watching that guy for 4 years now. That's amazing. I just want to say,
Who is Negrito Grande?
that's his channel.
Well, you got to look at his channel, Rancho.
Yeah, that's
what he does is he goes around. He has this video where he goes to like Guerrero, and he's talking about an African Mexican girl's hair, and he's comparing the hair that this girl has to African American women, and he says that Afro Mexican women have like better hair than African American women. And on Cam's live stream, African American women have jumped on and called him out on the shit he's doing on his channel, Negrito Grande. That's his channel.
I don't know who he is, but to me it sounds like somebody. You see, the thing about American culture that all Hispanics listening right now should really listen to this point is that it's a suicidal culture. It's a culture of self-hate, of self-disgust, and it's looking to kill itself. Now, some people are fucked up in that they make other people kill them for them, right? They don't want to do it themselves. They want other people to do it. And, they pass that burden onto other people. They just live miserable lives. But if you listen to the music, it's very suicidal. It's very much in communion with death. And, for me, it sounds like this guy is kind of looking for death. I hate to say it. God forbid something happens to him, but it's just like, why are you barking up these trees when you're talking about people giving you better treatment? You should be grateful. You should be the one thinking that Hispanics are so open with the outsider to be able to give you the respect you don't even get in the closest thing to your own country you've ever had.
It's
pure not.
You would think that a group that is like killing themselves at such a high rate and attacking other groups at such a high rate would actually not rap about killing, shooting, and robbing people, right?
Yeah. It's silly. They should be the one.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense, bro.
It's suicidal.
About that.
It's suicidal. These people, they're communing with Satan, man.
And I think that
on the point of like the macho whatever, it's what I see. A black brother, whatever, he'll have 7, hoes bringing him money, thinking he's all badass sitting at home, while Hispanic would have 7 kids and working his ass off.
Yeah, 3 jobs, another one on the week.
That's right. You always got to put it in contrast, bro.
Totally. And
I don't know. I mean, they have a lot of bigamy in Hispanic culture, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's true. We're not going to deny that, but at least that bigamy's fruitful, dude. At least
we don't deny it, bro. We're not blind.
Rancho, I know your wife is I hate to bring her up, but I know she's Afro Hispanic, Afro Colombian. I have cousins that are my brothers. These are like brothers to me. I was raised with them. We lived in the same house. Shit, we even slept on the same bed. We slept on the same bed at one point. And they are Afro Mexicans. And just to clarify things, I don't consider them the exact same thing as black gringos. I consider them completely different
I was about to
groups.
attack you, bro. Hey, can I say something? Yeah.
I just want to say real quick, as blackwashed as Fighter is not black. He's not black. Christina and her parents, they're not black. Black is Black American. All right. Maybe West Indians have an in on that because they're kind of come from an Anglo world. That makes sense. They're kind of related. But no, dude, there's a difference between having some African admixture within a Hispanic world in context and being black.
Dude, the difference is it's just it shouldn't even be compared, bro. The black women, like Colombian women, I don't see them as black women. If I say fuck black women, dude, Colombian women, I love them more than I do a Mexican woman.
Yeah, no, we understand that. We totally understand that.
But I wouldn't touch a nigger bitch.
Yeah, exactly. And what does that mean? That means Black American.
No, yeah. I mean, I do believe like that maybe this is just from my point of view that, for example, like we speak about kind of like a confederation, right? Or a union between all Hispanic countries. I do believe like each Hispanic country in a way has its own unique culture, even though it's all related. I also do believe that much of the ethnic lines of that country should be respected, right? So, like, if, for example, Chile has a mainly mestizo population, that should be respected for maybe, I don't know, maybe Bolivia or other countries, right? I do believe in that.
I understand what you're saying. It's like embracing your
This
differences.
is true even within countries. I mean, what's happened in Jalisco specifically is that it's become very much inundated by Southern Mexicans. So it's like we touch about this point that it's like you could be my twin brother, and if you're down and out, sure, like come stay at my house while you get yourself back on your feet. But after like 3 days, I'm gonna be annoyed of you and your family in my house. Like that's just human nature. You know, we can be juntos, pero no revueltos. You know, everybody, there's enough space for all of us. Us being united or integrated doesn't mean that we're going to move Honduras to Nuevo León and we're going to move Baja California into Argentina. You know, like that's not what that means. You know, we all have our unique regional, real quick, we all have our unique regional identities and they all kind of lend to like this kind of quilt that we have of Hispanidad. But that doesn't mean that we should just become like this amorphous blob. You know, I like being Nicaraguan. I like being able to connect to Mexico the way I do. I like being able to connect to the Caribbean and Colombia in the way I do. You know, it's part of what makes me Nicaraguan. And I'm sure the Cubans and the Mexicans in the group probably feel a certain way about whatever they are, you know?
Yeah, I just want to say that, like, who do you think has more in common with Afro-Hispanic that crosses the U.S.-Mexican border illegally? Another Hispanic, regardless of phenotype, right? This other Hispanic could be a tall, light-skinned European phenotype, blue-eyed guy from Jalisco. He's gonna have more in common with a Afro-Hispanic that crosses the border illegally than an African American is.
Yeah, that's the irony. That's exactly the irony.
Amen.
And you see this in whatever cities where we're mixed in, be it LA, be it Houston, be it the RGV, be it Miami, be it New York. You know, you see how, you know, there's probably a bunch of people in the audience that are half this, half that. I mean, you yourself, you're half Mexican, half Chilean, you know? So anyways, but I'm going to wrap it up, you guys. I gotta get going. It's already a little bit past 12. I said I wasn't gonna go past 12. God bless you guys. Again, you know, to wrap up the whole thing is, let's not let ourselves be emotional. Let's not fall into sensationalism. Be aware that your eyes can lie to you. Don't fall into traps where they're gonna throw out all the truth behind of what you may understand just because you reacted emotionally to one case, because all it takes is one case where you can be proven stupid, and then everything else you've said is going to be tainted with stupidness. So we have to be really conscious. We have to be really manful. We have to be really dispassionate. I think other lessons from this, again, it's like we're seeing this last little bit of the conversation is just avoid the angerization. You know what I'm saying? And I really do believe there's more white angers than black ones. But again, it's a culture, it's a spirit that you want to avoid because it just leads to destruction. As sadly we've seen with a lot of our Puerto Rican brothers, because they were here in the first wave. So they kind of fell into that trap before everyone else could. They didn't have anybody in front of them kind of, you know, guiding away. It's just kind of what happened with the tragic death of this couple in Chicago. And, you know, again, take care of your woman, be a man, drive, don't fucking drink too much where you have to give the responsibility of being a man to your wife. You know, be a macho, be a man, be like your grandpa, be like your uncle, be like your dad. If you had those influences, if you didn't, then, you know, go watch an old ranchera movie from, you know, the golden age of Mexican cinema, and you'll get a good idea of what Hispanic masculinity should be like. And, you know, these are the things to take from here. We'll be better. These things will happen less. You know, let's just pray for the family and the children, I guess. Cephas, do you want to lead us in a prayer as we sign off?
Rancho, can I say something real quick?
Go ahead, Kilo. Go ahead.
I want to thank you, bro, for because I was really, you know, I was in another world when you met me. I was somewhere else in my head. But since I've been hearing you talking and everything, because I've been in the background hearing, listening, dude, you've opened my eyes and made me aware of a threat that's out there. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And that's us losing our hispanidad. And we have that, bro. We have that inside us, bro. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
it's sad that you have to remind us of it. That's what's
Hey,
sad,
hey,
bro. That
hey,
says a
Kilo.
lot.
I just want to say something because I know you're like a Southsider. You're actually like a homie, right? Like in prison. Like if you were to go to prison, you would be like a homie, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was.
I think that if the homies like, because at the end of the day, recently we had a homie that beat up a white guy he was bullying a street vendor, and this homie came out there and he beat up the white guy and took a video of it. No one goes harder for Hispanics than like Southsiders do. They might have all the right intentions and maybe like they don't understand the power that they have, but they know the truth. They know how much whites hate us. They know how much blacks hate us. So I think that if the homies start picking this up, then it's gonna take off. Because once the homies start pushing the program, then it's like no one can stop it.
Maybe you can help us with that, Kilo, because like, you know, all my cousins were OGs. You know, they were in Lenox, they were like in Inglewood, like, you know, they joined Sud when they were in prison. So you know, I think it's crucial what Mestizaje is saying is that we need to somehow reach out to the OGs, you know, the older cousins of ours who grew up in the 90s and like, I don't know, try to Hispano pill them. And you've had that experience personally.
Yeah. Just by bringing it up, you can do that with them. Yeah, all right. Yeah. Hell yeah. No, that's true what he said, bro. As soon as Southsiders pick it up, it's over, bro, and it's unstoppable. He won't stop it.
Yeah.
Once that call is made, it's just we're that's all we want to do is fight, bro. Give us a fucking reason, bro.
Yeah, that's exactly what I explained to some of my upper class Hispanic friends that kind of come around here, where they kind of look at the cholo culture or kind of the crime culture as like disparaging, and I understand where they're coming from, but I always explain to them like, look, dude, this is just the natural warrior spirit, and when you live in a society where there's no constructive outlet for it and there's no opportunities, there's no, you know, at least in Nicaragua, my cousins who were getting in trouble, there's like a furniture shop across the street, and so he goes and he learns how to build furniture. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have those.
Yeah, no, we were being persecuted. Chicanos were being persecuted, bro. Bad.
Oh yeah, terribly for decades. So, you know, I think it's just that natural warrior spirit. It's just unfortunate there's not the best structure as far as like Logos goes. You know, as far as like cultural roots being fully
well, Rancho, I would have to argue with you there, because when you look at the tattoos that a lot of Southsiders have, they have like a lot of Mayan Aztec stuff, but they also have like Jesus Christ and like Christ and the Virgin Mary and a lot of that.
I agree. But what I was trying to say is that it's not a conscious awareness. It's an intuitive awareness. There's like a strong instinct, which we
and the sad part is that we go more for the Aztec war stuff than we do for the religious stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Kilo, if you could bring some of like older like Chicano, like Southsider guys onto the podcast, I would really appreciate that. I would love to to have a conversation with those guys.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. When I get back on Facebook, I'll ask one of them, bro.
Yeah. We'll keep
good, bro. Yeah, to instigate something going.
We'll come up with some kind of outreach too, you know. Yeah, no, I think that's a good sign. I think it's a good sign. Thank you, Kilo, for sharing that, man. And you know,
thank you, bro.
I'm not.
I just want to make that clear, bro. That Hispanic women, especially Colombian women, are not black, bro. They're not black. Don't call them black. They're Hispanic. You know, don't call me white. I'm Hispanic. Don't call me brown. I'm Hispanic. Right. You know what I mean? That's what I mean, bro. You know, that's
of course.
Yeah, that's it, bro.
Yeah, exactly. All right, you guys. Well, I think we should sign off. God bless you guys. Cephas, actually, why don't you give us a prayer before we sign out?
All right. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Ghost. Amen. Bless, O Lord, the repose we are about to take, that we may renew our bodily strength and awake refreshed, able to serve thee better. O all ye angels and saints, and thou especially, O Mother of God, intercede for us not only during this night, but for the rest of our lives, and particularly at the hour of our death. Amen.
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 Okay, you guys, have a good night. God bless you, and we'll see each other soon. Peace.